Hey, welcome to another special episode of The Hills Have Nerds. We're doing another nerd out this time. This is our fourth one, and today we're nerding out about Marvel Champions. This is a living card game from Fantasy Flight Games and one of my favorite games of all time, and I'm really excited about this episode. Our nerd out episodes, for anybody that's not familiar with them, are a little less history and background and more of a why do we like this thing? What do we think it does well? What makes us excited to play it or interact with it or read it or whatever have you? And we got a bunch of great guests on with us today, and we're going to get into that. And so let's talk about who we got here. You got me, you got Josh, you got Aaron. Say hi, Aaron.
Hello.
We got Nathan.
Hello, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, folks will remember Nathan from episode 8 on Friendly Local Game Stores. Nathan's our buddy that runs one of our FLGSs down here and a huge Marvel Champions fan. And then we also have two people I've been really excited to have on the podcast. We got Nelson from Nelson All Over.
How's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, glad you're here, man. And we got Steve, also known as Vardane from the Critical Encounters podcast.
How's it going, Josh?
So real quick, boys, Nathan, just introduce yourself real short. Who are you? You know, where do you come from? You got anything to plug? And go for it real fast.
In case you weren't listening to, haven't listened to episode 8 previously, my name's Nathan Varney. I run the gaming company. It's a gaming and otherwise hobby nerd store here in Pikeville, Kentucky. I've been playing Champions since the beginning of the game. It is currently my favorite game of all time and has been for almost its entire existence. So,
all right, Nelson, who are you? You got anything to plug? Do you do anything other than just come hang out with the nerds?
Yeah, I play a good bit of Marvel Champions as well as some other LCGs, which I think we'll kind of talk about what those are here in a second. But I have a channel called NelsonAllOverCards where I do a lot of live streams, gameplays, analysis of the game we're talking about today, along with some other card games.
Right, and we'll have links to everybody's projects and what they do in the show notes. I highly suggest everybody go check this stuff out. And then the other gentleman here, Steve, who are you?
Call me a gentleman. Threw me off. Yeah, so I'm one of the co-hosts for the Critical Encounters podcast. I think at this point we're the longest running podcast about the show. We look at the game from the villain's perspective. We're talking about encounter cards. We're going to give you villain lore. You're going to say, who are the Reavers? And we're going to tell you all about their history and lore in the comics. And then we're going to look at their cards. Occasionally we might talk about those disgusting heroes, but yeah, Daniel, Mike, and I are running that show, and we were, 5 years now, something like that. But you can find us on any podcatcher. We have a YouTube channel as well. We have some gameplay. The podcast is also on there, and it's not just static. So we're showing you photos from the comics and the cards. So if you're more of a visual person, check out the YouTube channel over there as well. So that's us in a nutshell. Can't give away all of our secret plans.
Steve was kind enough to have me on that show a few times, and I don't know if kind or ill-advised enough to have me on a few times.
You've been a great guest. You will have you on again as well.
Yeah. Whenever you need me to make an ass of myself, you just let me know and I'll come down. I'm good at it. So there we go. What'd you say, Aaron?
I said that's your specialty.
It is. It really is. I'm good at it.
well, was one of the times so much they had you on as that you broke in and when you kicked the door down and you wreaked havoc?
Yeah.
Well, he was just there to sell us some armor. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. Aggressive salesmanship. That's all.
You're right.
Yeah.
I was soliciting. I had things to do, moving and shaking. I believe canonically in the show, I am somewhere floating through space. I'm not 100% sure how much that adheres to canon. But let's get
our episode too.
What?
I said canonically, you're floating in space in our podcast as well.
It's
Most of
shared
the time.
universe.
Yeah, we overlap. We're doing the whole. We're going to do the multiverse thing and have everything come together at one point. All right, so let's get into our main topic. Let's do a little bit of background real quick. So what is Marvel Champions? We call it an LCG. What is an LCG? Who wants to take that? Don't all answer at once. Calm down, boy.
I'll give a shot at least to start here. So how I normally share with customers anyway, what an LCG is just to say it is a card game. It's a customizable card game along the veins of something like a Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, where you can still build a deck how you are interested in building a deck within the game's restrictions, but there's not collectability. You don't buy blind packs. You don't get random cards. When you purchase a product, you get a full play set of it, and you're not having to rare chase or search for cards necessarily. Notwithstanding, like Doctor Strange being out of print right now, but that's not exactly. That's an outlier. But yeah, so that's how I normally will describe to my customers what a living card game is, what an LCG is.
All right, and so what is Marvel? How does Marvel Champions kind of separate itself from other LCGs? When we say we're playing Marvel Champions, what are we doing? What roles are we taking? So on and so forth. Nelson, Steve, either you guys want to take that?
Go ahead.
No,
go ahead. No, you do it. You guys are going to edit, right? They're going to edit, I hope. So.
No, not at all.
No. Okay.
I love
We
that.
don't do that.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, we don't do it.
Yeah, Marvel Champions, basically it's a cooperative game. You're taking on the role of a hero and beating up on now that Steve's here, I feel like I have to take on take the side of the heroes here. You take on the role of a hero and then you beat up on some villains, and you're going to be doing this collectively. Each kind of character has their own unique abilities along with a set of cards that you're going to be adding more cards into that deck to kind of deck build, customize in order to kind of give them their own flavor, and then take them up against, we have so many different encounters at this point. So take them up against whoever and whatever you want to fight and beat up on.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's kind of the quick and dirty of what Marvel Champions is, right? You pick a hero. There are currently 53 released heroes for the game, 55 announced heroes, and 57 heroes if you include the two that have been hinted at in a future expansion, which we'll talk about. We'll get to that in a little bit. There are 46 villains, I think, that are available, if my count was correct. And when you're fighting them, you can put modular sets into your villains. So your villains have a certain deck that they come with, and then they have suggested modular sets to kind of change them up. And there are 89 modular sets available for the game right now. And that's including Fantasy Flight's print and play. Their only official print and play I think they've ever released, the Kree Fanatic with Ronan. Is that right?
Yep, that's the only one.
Yeah, they got 7 campaigns and a little mini campaign featuring Mojo and Spiral and Magog. There's just a ton of content for this game, and the modularity and replayability for it is unreal. Honestly.
Yeah, and for your listeners who haven't really listened, modular set is like a set of cards, maybe 5 to 9 cards that have a cohesive theme inside that little group. You're playing, and you can add it to that scenario, and it can change the flavor or the difficulty of the scenario. Maybe you want to put in Armadillo, it's your favorite Marvel villain. He has his own flair, and he goes into the deck. Or maybe you want to see the Sinister Six, so you can put in a set of those guys. That changes the difficulty, the flavor, just the mechanics of the scenario. So shuffling in different modular sets or changing those, including modular sets that change the difficulty, that are standard, expert. It plays for as young. I would say I've played the game a ton with my 10-year-old. But then you have, us grown adults who may be looking for a super challenge. So it plays the whole spectrum on difficulty levels, from the novice to the full expert. So that's another neat piece of the game.
nice. It's really, really cool.
Or if you want to
Alright.
have a miserable time, you just add Doomsday Chair to Hella like I have.
Ooh, nice. Nice.
God, what did we play the other day with Ultron?
What was
That was you had to kill an overkill through a minion
yeah.
to kill the villain.
What was it? The Fastball
challenge.
Special weekly one shot?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
So just a little aside there. There are hero team up cards in this game for anybody that doesn't know. And we're going to, moving on, we'll kind of assume people know what we're talking about. If you're listening to this, you probably know what Marvel Champions is. I know Steve in Scotland will probably listen to this. Hi, Steve. We always give a shout out to Steve in Scotland.
Yeah.
It's just kind of become a thing now.
Hi, Steve.
Yep. We got one from you there.
Oh, great. Great.
But yeah, then the certain heroes have team up cards with other heroes, and so Wolverine and Colossus have a team up card called Fastball Special that does overkill damage, which just means that any extra damage after killing a little minion that's on the table will go into the villain. And when you do that, there was a little special encounter, like a weekly one shot that Fantasy Flight's been releasing for people to kind of have these little extra activities to do in the game,
Little community challenge with achievements,
challenge.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, little
Win
achievements.
this way, use this guy, use this theme. Those have been fun so far.
And we did it with Ultron, and we threw in Mr. Hyde. And our goal was you had to kill Mr. Hyde with overkill into Ultron or into the villain that we were fighting. Couldn't do it with an Ultron drone or something. We had to do Mr. Hyde. He had to be the table.
Oof.
And it was
Long game.
It was hell on earth for a little bit. I love this game so much, except for several key moments during that playthrough.
You say that, but I mean, most of the time you're like, I'm going to throw this extra set in. And then the whole time you're like, who did this to me?
Your own hubris.
I do that all the time throwing, I really like, you mentioned Armadillo, Stephen. Armadillo is one of my favorites.
Yeah, he's fun.
It really is. I love the throwing Tufts around and how he works. And I throw Armadillo in all the time. Him and Scorpion, the Scorpion modular, a mess of things. Just because I like Scorpion, I really wish there was a Scorpion villain we could fight. The Sinister Assault's the closest we can get, but I like throwing that in. And then I end up getting stunned, or everything gets tough and plus 40 million damage on it. And I'm like, who did this to us? Whose idea was this? All right. Marvel Champions was released when? Anybody want to take a guess? Anybody read their show notes?
2019.
November.
What month? November 2019. Steve gets a point. Right now, Steve's in the lead.
So sweet. Stole that 2019 from someone.
So villainous.
Yeah.
Some of the designers on Marvel Champions, and I know, Steve, you and Nelson have actually had the opportunity to sit down and talk to the designers. We got Caleb Boggs, Caleb Grace, Tony Fanchi, MJ Newman did some designing on there from Fantasy Flight games. These might be names some people may recognize if they're familiar with Fantasy Flight products, especially Arkham Horror or the Lord of the Rings living card game.
Yeah, correction. You said Caleb Boggs. It's Michael Boggs, and he's a big designer on Netrunner LCG. So if you're a Netrunner fan, he did a ton of stuff.
I thought
for
they
Marvel
were both
Champions.
Why was I thinking both of their names were Caleb?
I don't know.
Is there
I'm going to tell them you said so. You're in trouble.
Is there another? They don't know me. I don't give it. This guy from the Hills Had Nerds got your name wrong. What? The Hills Have? Tell him. You know what? Tell him. Tell him to come on the show. We'll talk to him.
You want him to know.
I want him to know my name, Steve. Everybody needs to know the Hills Have Nerds. Yeah, Michael Boggs. Caleb. Now Boggs is not with them anymore, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes,
so
he is. He moved
Go
on to a different company in place. I don't want to make it sound like he passed on. He's in a better place. I don't. Yeah.
And at the in memoriam, Michael Boggs.
Michael Boggs.
You're dead to us. That's what Steve said.
Great.
Well, we got Caleb Grace and Tony Fanchi are the lead designers on this product. And from what I've heard from interviews, especially the interviews that you guys have done, and then watching some actual plays, I mean, this really seems like a labor of love for these guys. I mean, what
Oh,
do you
sure.
guys think? Getting ready to talk
Yeah,
about
I mean, you've heard on occasion they have said, how blessed they are they make games for a living and with an IP that they just love to start with. So it always felt like a dream job to me too, right? Like, who doesn't want to like play card games and get paid for it? Sounds great. So
Yeah, and I would just echo that to just also talk about just the passion that they have for the IP itself. Caleb working on Lord of the Rings and also Marvel, but just hearing him talk about the passion that he has for the IP as well as Tony, just they love the IP, and so you can definitely see how the thematics in the IP and that passion does translate to mechanics, where they're very carefully making sure that each hero feels thematic in the way that they interact with the game mechanics. And so like that, you can have anybody create a game and it can be a good game, but what makes this game so great is the crossover and the blend of the theme and mechanics, and you can tell that just comes from the passion of the designers.
Yeah, I mean, they really seem like they love the game. It's not just a paycheck, right? They're not just churning out content just to churn out content. Everything feels meaningful. Everything has a new kind of gimmick, for better or worse, but they're always iterating with every new thing that's coming out. And it still feels inventive and fresh, which is really, really great. And then, they do things like permanently attach the Infinity Gauntlet to Loki and whatever. Which will
they tell a very specific story in that box, and that makes perfect sense inside that box.
Yeah, does it?
It does. But we all want a standalone Loki, so
in the campaign, absolutely, I agree.
Yes.
But yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll get to. There's a part that I got in the show notes of what could be better, any criticisms, and we'll see what happens when we get to that. But let's go forward. And I gotta give a shout out to the Winning Hand podcast and their interview with MJ Newman when we get to that, because it was phenomenal. Boom Guy and those dudes. When we get to that. All right. So how did we all discover the game? Nathan, how did you discover the game? What attracted you to it?
Well, I mean, I've been into Marvel comics and such since I started collecting comics in 1993. So when I played Versus System, which was an Upper Deck collectible card game from about, I think, 2004, which had Marvel and DC, as well as one-shot Hellboy set. So I've always been interested in especially comic-themed tabletop games, card games, board games, even role-playing games. So when this got announced, I was already interested in. I'd already played all of Fantasy Flight's living card games up to that point, including the aforementioned Lord of the Rings and Netrunner and so forth. And so I was very much interested in the idea of not having to buy booster boxes and chase rares like I did with Versus System, which I did love that game, but it fool around and have to buy a case of booster boxes to get what you want. So that sucked. But financially sucked anyway. So I was very interested in the IP, and then knowing that the design team that had also done some with been involved with Lord of the Rings and Arkham Horror, which I'd already played and enjoyed, and I said, okay, I think this is probably going to be a home run for me, and played it as soon as I was able to get my hands on it after it released, and yeah, that was the end of the story for me. It was awesome. It is awesome.
I will say, for a long time, Nathan always talked about games, and he was like, "This is a really good game, but this is my favorite game that's not Versus System." And now I don't think I've heard you talk about Versus System in quite a while.
No, I mean it's
bad
just,
to him.
It's just Champions. Champions killed it for me. So,
Nelson.
Yeah, so I actually come from a pretty significantly different background than Nathan does, because before I started playing Champions, I would not even really consider myself a fan of Marvel. I watched the movies and everything. I enjoyed them, but it was just like any other movie. And I actually played my first game of Champions in early 2021. At the time, I was doing a podcast about board games, and we just played a ton of board games. And I had already always heard it described as kind of the better version of Marvel Legendary. And Marvel Legendary is a game, it's a deck building game, but it's very different than Champions when you get down to the mechanics of it. But I loved Legendary, and so I was like, you know what, I'm going to try it. So I bought Champions. It probably sat on my shelf for 8 months before I even popped it open. And once I cracked it open, I played that first game. Oh my gosh, I was instantly hooked. And ever since then, I probably played 200 to 300 games just that first year. And, you know, every other day I'd be going down to my local game store, picking up a new pack, cracking it open, trying out new ones, Black Widow, Thor, how are these going to play? And I was just instantly hooked. And then, you know, that kind of devolved into me creating a YouTube channel around the game because I enjoyed it so much.
So did your YouTube channel, NelsonAllOverCards, was that created for Marvel Champions? Like, is that what spurred that on?
Yeah, so I was doing a podcast that was general board games, and I found myself, I was just talking about Marvel Champions every single episode, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this. And so I started live streaming with D20 Woodworking. So him and I were actually in a different collaboration called the Board Vengers, which lasted for probably about a year. And so that was a lot of fun. He was actually the one who got me into it, taught me how the game worked and everything. And so we started live streaming. And at the time, my channel was actually called The Living Card Gamer. And then once the other podcast that I was on kind of ended, I did some rebranding. And so now it's Nelson All Over Cards. So yeah, that's how it was born.
That's cool. Steve, what's your history with the game?
So I was a child of the 90s, sort of. I owned some X-Men comics. I watched some, X-Men cartoons, played some X-Men video games, but wasn't a huge Marvel nerd. I watched all the MCU movies, though I got super into them and really enjoyed them. I've played Lord of the Rings from the start, the Lord of the Rings living card game from the start, played Arkham Horror, a bunch of other FFG things. And this got announced at Gen Con, and I said, ugh, I do not want to play this game. This looks terrible. Keep it away from me. I'm going to stick to my Lord of the Rings stuff and things like that. And then a couple of months later, it released, like that was in, Gen Con's in August, and then November the game came out, and I still didn't want to play it or look at it. And then at some point, maybe December, I got my hands on it. I can't remember how or why, but I bought a copy of it, and in January started the podcast. So went hard. Went hard.
Now I'm going to dedicate the next 5 years of my life to it.
Yeah. I really liked it, and at the time, there's like 10 podcasts out, right? And
there were a lot.
Yeah, there was a lot, and they're all gone. Except for us, and MCM's still around in its certain form. And, like the game was fun, and I was having a good time, and my friends wanted to play it. That was the thing. I wanted to play co-op, and my friends locally were playing, so we were playing. And, January 2020 is only a couple months away before COVID hit. And we had our little bubble, and the guys in that group wanted to play this, and I couldn't do anything else with it. And so the podcast after the experiment for a month or two, like really solidified that this is how I can interact with this game, even if I can't interact at the game store and things like that. So we started the show, and, I own everything and play all the time and listen to other shows and check out Nelson's channel and listen, it just went from there. So.
Steve, if I may ask, what made you, have that initial reaction? Do you know, like keep that away from me? Like you were kind of looking to potentially avoid the game. Do you recall what made you kind of feel that way at first?
Yeah, I think so Endgame had come out in like April of that year, and which is a great movie, right? And it sort of felt like maybe I'm done with Marvel now. Like that was a culmination of an amazing 20 years of movies, and there was just so much comic stuff, and I was into other IPs. So I don't know if it was a full-on revulsion of everything Marvel. That wasn't happening, but it just like, can I afford another LCG? Because I know what it looked like. My Lord of the Rings collection and my Arkham Horror collection. I know what those look like, right? Yeah, you're not chasing packs, but I'm still buying packs every couple months. And I think it was like I can't really do a third one. But then Lord of the Rings ended officially. You know, they were just going to repackage old content. So my gaming budget may have freed up. I don't know. Oh, and I was trying to play some Legend of the Five Rings as well from them, which was a competitive LCG. So it just, it's just one more thing. And it's time, right? Who has the time for everything they want to do? And that was, I didn't have the time for it. But then I ended up making the time for this and dropping other stuff. So.
Makes
What about
sense.
you, Aaron?
I like
Sorry,
that.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Nathan. Go ahead.
I was just saying that's interesting. I thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I know how you found it.
My introduction was you said, "Hey, come over and play some of this game with me."
I bought this game. Come play, and then what we do?
And then you dropped a ton of money and bought everything.
I did.
And I just live off of your cards and don't buy any of my own.
But you bought Doctor Strange. That's the only thing that you have.
I did, because
So
Nathan was like, "Yeah, they're not going to print Doctor Strange anymore." And I was like, "Oh, I got to get it."
That's the only deck. It's the only deck Aaron, I think, owns. Or you own Sinister Motives.
Yeah, I own Sinister Motives and I own the core set. But
so you've bought a few things other that since then.
Yeah, I picked up the game. I actually bought it from Nathan because I looked for it when I saw that it was releasing. And I thought, this is really cool. I want to get into that. That is I love cooperative games. That's what I like competitive games, but I'm overly competitive and I kind of make it unfun for other people.
It's true.
But I make cooperative games unfun for other people too sometimes.
It's also true.
But I work on that. I think I do all right. But I saw it when it was coming out. And I just kind of moved back here from Central Kentucky, moved back to Eastern Kentucky. And I called Page 3 to see if they had it, because I knew the release date had hit and they didn't have it. And this is before the gaming company had opened. And so they didn't have it, and I don't like to order things online. I usually wait until a game store I'm in or a game store I know of, I can buy it from brick and mortar. It's just how I am. I rarely ever order a game I want. If I can't get it local or from a store I'm in, I'm just going to wait. And so I waited. And then we were down, gaming company had opened, and Nathan was down there. We went down. I think it was your opening day, wasn't it, Nathan? Or like the first couple opening the days down there?
Yeah, I was shortly thereafter. I don't recall that I don't know that we were able to have it for release day, for opening day, because of logistics, trying to get a direct account with Asmodee or get stuff lined out with ACD, which is their only wholesale distributor. So but as soon as, it was very shortly thereafter, if it wasn't opening day, that we had it, because I was like, children, if I only have one board game, one card game, whatever you want to say, out here on my shelves, by golly, it's going to be Marvel Champions.
And me and Elizabeth, my wife, and people remember Elizabeth from our episode on Cozy Games. We went down there for opening day and saw Marvel Champions. I was like, man, I've really wanted this game. And Elizabeth, God bless her, she enables me. And she was like, you should get it. I was like, we'll play it. I was like, okay. So I grabbed the core set, and then I looked and I was like, Captain America's not in the core set, and he's my favorite hero. And I saw they have a Captain America pack. I was like, okay. And then Hawkeye is my wife's favorite hero. And
sorry about that.
Dude, she plays a mean Hawkeye, man. She plays a mean Hawkeye. And so we were looking, I was like, where's Hawkeye? And I think, Nathan, you're with us. You're like, oh, well, he's in this expansion, The Rise of Red Skull. I'm like, oh my God, I love Cap. Red Skull's the first expansion. There's Hawkeye. All right, let's do the expansion too. So I got the core set, the first expansion, and Captain America on the same day. And we came back, and I think, Aaron, you came over a little way after, and we played, and we were just hooked. just absolutely hooked. And I think me and you and Elizabeth went through all the core set villains, and then we did the first campaign and the second campaign. Then we did Galaxy's Most Wanted. So we did Rise of Red Skull and Galaxy's Most Wanted, and then we were playing Mad Titan Shadow, and then we started the game night at the store, and it's just kind of been constant. And I was working from home at that point too, so I had some downtime, like quote unquote downtime when working from home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
we won't tell.
Yeah.
Off record.
Yeah. I mean, I have downtime at the office now too, but whatever. But yeah, it was just constantly, okay, well, I'm in between calls or everything's quiet on the Western Front. Let's get in 12 games of Champions. I'm sitting here by myself at the house. And it was great. I know Aaron was with me when I caught up with everything. I think I bought 4 or 5 hero packs and an expansion to round out the thing there.
I remember after we got done playing that night, the first you were like, Galaxy Most Wanted releases in a few days. I'm going to get that too.
Yeah. It was great. It's been awesome. It is the only game besides Smash Up, and I'm not current on Smash Up anymore. It's the only game I've ever bought everything for, including the bling stuff, extra things. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I play it. My wife plays it. My son plays every now and then when I can guilt trip him into it. We play with buddies. We love it.
That's awesome.
If I may just toss out a piece of kind of a just love for Champions, talking about hey, if I'm only going to stock one game, it just made me think of it. Just as a random, for our store, through the roughly 3.5 years we've been open, and I think Josh, you and Aaron have probably heard this, and I may have even told Nelson this before, but just for listeners out there, just kind of how cool is it from my perspective, because it's my favorite game. The only tabletop game, board and card games anyway, self-contained stuff, not counting collectible card games like Magic and so forth. The only game that outsells Marvel Champions core set for us is Cards Against Humanity's core set. That's it. Nothing else is even close. It's more than double the third place.
Oh,
so it's pretty cool.
You pretty much give it away as a parting gift though when people come in oh, hey, you're gonna buy that? Buy this too.
That's just good marketing.
Everyone that comes in the store, because we'll be playing and people will come down and go, hey, I'm new to the area. Can I we saw you guys do a board game night. What time is it? Oh yeah, we do board game nights on Thursdays, but we do a Marvel Champions night on Tuesdays, and this is Marvel Champions, and then we go into the spiel of what it is and why they should buy it. And they have the core sets right over here and blah, blah, blah. And then there's a sale this weekend. You can get it then. And you can buy all your favorite heroes.
You just hear someone say, I really want to get into card games, and a red gleam hits Josh and Nathan's eyes. They're like,
Nice.
You want to buy some crack?
You're not wrong. No, but it's we've picked up two new guys here in the past maybe 2 months or so. So the one hasn't vacation time has kind of taken him of the past few weeks, but I know the third Josh, because we don't have 3 Joshes that regularly play,
and they are all handsome and intelligent
in Champions. So it's been pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, my local store has shout out to Jupiter Games if you're in the southern tier area of New York. Anyways, they have seen a recent uptick in sales and in more interest in the game, so they started a come play night, a Marvel Champions night, and we've had our first one. We had 6 people show up, and 2 of them had never played before in their lives, so that was fun, teaching people how to play. It's super easy to teach. It's a lot of fun, and they definitely seemed like they were interested. They did not walk out of the store with a box in their hand, but I think they'll be back. So,
just when you see people playing something, it gets you interested, and I think that's a big thing. Just having a night dedicated to it can really get more people into it.
Yeah,
it blew my mind, and I talk about this all the time. I can't remember which expansion release it was. It might have been It was after we'd started the group, and I think it was either not Next Evolution. Was Next Evolution the first X-Men wave?
No,
Mutant
Mutant
Genesis.
Mutant Genesis. It was either Sinister Motives or Mutant Genesis. And we had like 23, 22 people
Oh yeah.
there. Do you remember that night?
There was one point we had 4 or 5 tables.
Yeah.
Going.
Yeah, of 4-player games going for Marvel Champions for a little like something that wasn't Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, or Pokemon in a little store in southeastern Kentucky, you know?
Yep.
And
Yeah,
that
that's
was
impressive.
wild. And that's just testament to how cool the game is, man. It's also, and then we can move into our what does the game do well point here. It's cooperative. Like the barrier for entry is low to none, right? If your buddy's got a deck, here, sit down and play.
Yep.
You don't necessarily have to deck build, because when you buy a deck, they come pre-built. You can play a pre-con, right? You may not do super well against the most challenging encounters, but you can fight Rhino with it. I mean, I think it being cooperative can kind of dull that trepidation people have of getting into something where, I don't know, and if I'm bad at deck building, then I sit down, I'm just gonna get my ass kicked constantly, and I'm just gonna keep losing. Well, here, no, if you're playing with people who know what they're doing, then you got a good entry, you got people to go with. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
Just build Justice Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
You'll win every time.
Yeah, Josh, you're right about the low barrier to entry. So, cooperative game, that's number one, right? New people feel like they're gonna win or lose together. The decks come with a pre-con, so you could just buy something and play it. It's fairly easy to begin with, like at the start, like out of the core. You can rack up some victories and get yourself motivated to try harder scenarios and to do different things. And the price is reasonable for a board game, right? It's not, dropping $200 on this gigantic box of Gloomhaven going, I don't even know where to start. And if you have any kind of people playing, everyone I've met is welcoming to new players. They want new people to play. They're going to give you a deck. Here, try this. Who's your favorite hero? That's what we did, right? I built 4 decks. Who do you like? One guy says, I like Spider-Man, but I don't know anything about. Nope, just take Spider-Man. You're gonna have fun doing some swinging web kicks. You're gonna have a great time, And he did. So those sort of things compared to a competitive game, I don't even know how you start in a competitive game at this if you haven't played competitive games before.
Oh yeah.
Or my store does a ton of Warhammer type miniature war game stuff. And you walk around, you look at the guys' tables, and you're like, yeah, I'm not getting into this, right? Like, I got to buy minis, I got to paint minis, I got to fight these guys, I got to lose after all this investment. No. Marvel Champions, you're going to sit down, you've got these great comic art cards, and you're going to play. And if you lose, it's okay, because everybody else at the table also lost with you, and you guys can commiserate over that and bring another deck next week, and let's try it again, right? So
Also, it's cooperative. If you flip a card that makes you lose, well, I didn't flip that card.
little asterisk in the corner of the victory.
Yeah, a little asterisk. Yeah.
Yep.
Nelson, what do you think?
Josh's deck for so long, so I can blame him. You built a terrible deck.
Nelson, what do you think? What does the game do well?
The game does so many things well, and I mean the community is fantastic around it, but thinking from like a mechanical standpoint, I really like how the heroes all feel very different. You said we had like 54 revealed heroes or something
55
now?
55 announced heroes.
55 announced, and every single one of them feels unique and different and fun to play, right? If I'm going to pull out Hawkeye, I'm going to play a completely different game than if I'm going to play Colossus, who came out years later. And it's just so cool how the designers were able to take the mechanics that they set forth in 2019, and obviously they've added and modified mechanics since then, but like the foundation of the game is still there, and just how they've been able to expand and create so many unique heroes that all feel cool. And also in Marvel Champions, whenever I'm playing a hero, sometimes like there are weaker heroes, but you do feel like a superhero. You do get those swinging web kicks when you're playing Peter Parker. You do get to, taunt the villain, have them come at you and bounce off your steel skin if you're playing Colossus. And it's just like, it feels good and you feel epic and you feel powerful. And I think that like kind of lends itself to kind of the exciting nature of the co-op when you're playing with a group of people.
Oh yeah.
Well said, both of you. That's that is. But I think one of the things that is kind of a testament to this idea that what you were touching on there, Nelson, about how the different heroes feel unique and different, even after 5 years worth of content at this point, or at least coming up on 5 years, but with effectively 5 years. To even say, a hero like Jubilee, which is, our most recent release, most people would say probably, traditionally Jubilee's like, kind of the Juggernaut quote from the old cartoon of, what are you going to do? Hit me with your diaper.
Sparkle fingers.
Yeah. And she feels like, kind of if I may drop a spoiler here for X-Men 97, have any of you guys watched
I haven't
or
seen
not
it
watched?
yet. I haven't seen. I'll just tune out for 10 seconds.
Okay, it's a real. So in one episode of X-Men 97, the first season, Jubilee effectively meets up with another version of herself in the Mojoverse, if you will, and basically she teaches her how to turn her plasmoid energy into basically like a buzzsaw, and use it as like, use it as a buzzsaw to like cut crap in half. And it's like, holy smokes. And that's really what the Jubilee hero feels like. In some ways, like when you pull off some of these combos with her glasses and her coat and are bolstering like the multi-talented or a hit and run, or, some of these other cards, and port for a bunch and attack for a bunch and kind of spread it however you want. And it's like, man, this is Jubilee we're talking about. Like, this is a character. This is the baby X-Men, if you will, at least traditionally. I know that story arcs have changed for over years, but I mean, by and large, that's what most people probably think of her as, is the little kid in the room with people like Wolverine and Colossus that can go toe to toe with about anybody. So it's really cool to actually be able to sit at the table and still feel powerful, even when you're playing somebody that most people would potentially go into with the preconception. And I did as well. I expected her fully to not feel not feel as powerful, to feel maybe underwhelmed at least at a multiplayer table. And I haven't played her solo, so maybe Nelson or I don't know if Steve, if
He holds up in solo.
rest of you. Like I've watched you guys at least Nelson. Steve, if you've played on a stream I haven't seen yet, but at least I've seen Nelson play her on a stream, and
She likes Nelson more.
Do well.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's really, I think that's just such a really cool testament and credit to the design team, that they're able, like you said, to still really pull cool things out of this game, out of whatever hero that you want to put out. And it makes me extremely excited for like Nightcrawler, because he's been my favorite Marvel character for 30 years. So to have him come into the game, and it's like, man, I bet he's actually absolutely tear things up for me, and it's going to be awesome.
Watch him be the worst one.
I do. Go ahead.
So
Whoever
the
was
theme
next.
of the different characters, I think, is one of the things they do well, like we've been saying. And these are designers who have done other games with other themes and made those themes great as well, right? In Arkham Horror, you are delaying the inevitable. You barely are holding on. You're lucky if half your team doesn't go insane, right? It's like Cthulhu, right? And we've heard Josh talk about the RPG. Lord of the Rings, you assemble a fellowship and you're going on quests, and it's a little bit different gameplay. There's some similarities between those three cooperative card games, but the theme in this one of, I am a superhero and I'm going to punch the bad guy a whole bunch, is there. I mean, we lament the bad guys being punched on our shows quite so often, but like, who's really the bad guy? But you might think, well, X-23 and Wolverine are going to be the same gameplay, basically. And they're not. They're very different mechanics,
Yeah.
but they still feel like Wolverine. He's healing. X-23 is doing her damage. She's got her honey badger sister, right? All this kind of stuff is there, and I don't know. They have that dedication. We mentioned they care about the game. They care about the IP. So that's what it does well. If you like Marvel, if you don't like Marvel, I think you got to give it a try just because of you'll. I've heard people say, I didn't really read the comics and I started playing and now I do, or I've gone and found out more about these characters. And that's one thing we do on our show is there's a ton of villains, tons of minions that I never heard of before or I didn't really know about. And we go and we research and we learn about them. And you're like, yeah, this guy makes sense. Now I understand why they gave this character this ability or why this guy does that thing. And for the most part, they're hitting on theme all the time for this game.
Agreed.
Aaron, you got anything to add to what it does well before we move on?
Something nothing we haven't talked about. Like I really like this game and it's like we talked about the modular sets. I love fighting a villain and adding the different modular sets can feel like an entirely different new fight.
Oh
And
yeah.
I've played other games that have you mix things in and it changes and it always feels the same with a little bit of difference. But I feel like this game has really done good at changing things up so much. It feels like different fights every time.
Yeah, good catch.
Yeah, absolutely. And they bring, all those different modular sets can bring just a new layer of difficulty to something. Not to mention the standard expert or whatever deviations, but just, putting in a modular set that makes the villain stun more or makes them confuse more or makes them take your stuff away. Can just include it, throw in a whole new power set to this villain that you've been used to, or especially with the Mr. Sinister modulars, the flight, super strength and telekinesis or whatever, like those are game changing, literally game changing for a lot of villains. Yeah, that's great. So moving on, we're going to skip. So I got on my little show notes here. We got the what could be better criticism, stuff like that. Let's not bring it down yet. Let's go into our favorites. What are our favorites of all the different things that that this game includes, all the different pieces of the game. And so Nelson, let's start with you because you're just under me in the Discord channel and I saw your name first.
Okay.
We Pokemon style made eye contact there. Who's your favorite hero?
My favorite hero right now probably is Domino from the Next Evolution box. She's X-Force traded in this game, and she's all about like manipulating probability and discarding cards from the top of your deck, and then based on what you discard, getting benefits for those. But then she has also a ton of mechanics that allow her to manipulate what you will be discarding. And just like from a mechanical standpoint, that play line is just so satisfying. Trying to stack exactly what you need in your hand versus what you're going to be discarding is just some of the most fun I've ever had in Marvel Champions.
Steve, how about yours?
Okay, so this is there's an asterisk here, like currently, right? Because it changes as new people come into play. But I like to build a board. I like to put a bunch of stuff on the table and turn cards sideways. That's my I don't mind if I do 20 things and only make 1 point of progress. I still got to do 20 different things. So I really like Penny Parker Spider. She does that crazy. She all the time. She's got all her little interfaces and she's in a giant robot suit and she's doing her thing. And that's a character that I knew nothing about lore wise, except for the Into the Spider-Verse movie. She is a ton of fun, but I also really like Psylocke out of the Next Evolution wave. She's got her little Psy knives and Psy katanas that she flips back and forth, and you start with a bunch of stuff and you get things going. And then Cable is also a lot of fun. Now he's a little different because he's putting stuff on the table.
I know. Supposed to be one. You can't name every hero.
I'm a villain. I can name whoever I want. And then Cable's my third. It was hard. It's hard to pick, right? But I like Cable how he plays. He plays with side schemes, which is a whole new thing. They invented player side schemes, so it's a ton of fun to use him as well. So there you go. Those are my three.
You can name as many as you want.
I like to take a lot of actions, even if I didn't make a lot of progress. So there we go.
Nathan, who's your favorite?
Oh my goodness, Steve! That one. Thank you for opening the gate to do multiples. Let me pull out my scroll.
We got like 45 more minutes left. We can't. So just
I'm kidding.
Brief.
Nathan pulled out a binder. It's crazy.
Oh, gosh.
You said there's how many heroes? Let's rank them all right now.
I'm gonna leave. I narrowed it down to the top 50. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
No, I think my favorite aspect of these for quite some time now has been protection. So my favorite two characters to play in protection are Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and Captain America. So probably those two guys. There's several other characters. I mean, you mentioned Cable is another that he's probably in my top definitely in my top 5. I think he might be the number 3 for me. Not for protection, but just as a general character to play. But I love to be able to defend for the table. Our game group, which Josh, Aaron, and I, are in here locally. We typically have 3 and 4 player tables at the shop, so it's extremely satisfying to be able to defend for ideally all 4 people in a round. What's the word I'm looking for? Regularly, consistently. There we go. Consistently. And Spider-Man and Captain America are both pretty good at that, as well as Gambit, I guess. So Gambit's done some good work for me on that too. So, yeah. But yeah, I think Peter Parker, if I had to say a single number 1, it's probably Pete. And he's from the core set. So,
yeah.
hey.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Ant-Man too, Josh. I also like Ant-Man a lot, so let's put him in my list, okay?
You want to
It's a weekly challenge. Steve was Ant-Man. Ended up playing him.
Yeah.
Finally built him Injustice for the first time. Our buddy Cody, that's normally on the show here. He inspired me to do some Shield stuff with Ant-Man, and I ended up playing that for the weekly challenge this week, and it was awesome.
Aaron, who's your favorite?
Who's my favorite?
Who's your favorite?
I'd have to think about it. I don't know. Well, actually, I mean, I'm a fan of all the Spider-Man heroes, just from the comics and everything, and I really like the way Spider-Man plays. Favorite's probably Doctor Strange. I mean, he plays himself. It's nice. It's
cheater.
But I also really like Adam Warlock. I love the balance between Adam Warlock. I like the Mystics. What can I say?
Aaron likes the broken, like.
Have you played Magic yet?
I have. I really like Magic.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, she's fun. What about you, Josh?
My favorite hero.
We've run out of time now, so
too bad. If that one guy hadn't mentioned 5 different guys.
Steve took all the time out. We still got a long time. My favorite hero is Captain America, like hands down. And I don't play him as much as I should because I played him so much at the beginning. Like he was if I'm going to do, I was doing expert run throughs of the campaigns, and that solo, like that Cap's my guy. I had a Cap leadership deck, and I went through and hit all that, and I played him so much. And I just recently have played a Captain America pool deck, and I despise the pool aspect, and it has made me really enjoy the pool aspect.
Oh, despise, that's a tough word.
Yeah, I mean, despise is a strong word. I like it, but it's not my favorite. But yeah, Captain America hands down, and then Colossus. Colossus is since we're naming multiple. Nelson, you can name another one if you want to, because you just said one.
Quicksilver.
He said it so fast too.
It's on theme, right? Like I had to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Colossus's ability to just take it, just take hits, stand back up. Iron Will is just such a great card, and being able to play around that. Now it's key to his kit to get that down, and he feels like a completely different hero with or without it.
Yes.
But yeah, Colossus is phenomenal. And I don't understand, like I hear people sometimes go, I just don't get Colossus. I don't like Colossus. He's not good. And I'm like, well, it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to have a bad opinion on something. You're dumb, but that's all right.
That's like all those Hawkeye players out there.
Ooh, taking swings at Kennedy Hawk and my wife.
Yeah, well, I mean, we already know her judgment's a little lacking if she married you, so.
I locked it down before she could realize, before she could realize the mistake she made.
Oh, smart. Okay.
Yeah.
Villainous. I like it. I approve.
Yeah. I don't know what contest in hell she won to get me as a prize, but I'm here and it's too late now. She's locked in. But yeah, Captain America and Colossus. And we talked about, we mentioned some aspects. Nathan, you mentioned your favorite aspects. Let's talk about aspects. What are our favorite aspects there? And when we say favorite aspect, Nelson, you go ahead and lead us off here. What is an aspect and what is your favorite aspect?
Yeah, so earlier we were kind of talking about how in the game you take your hero, which comes with a specified number of cards, and you're going to add cards into that deck. Now, when you're doing that, you typically there are a couple of heroes that break this rule, but you're going to pick one of the 4 aspects. There is a 5th aspect, but that's kind of a one-off, so we're just going to talk about the 4 aspects. There's aggression, which is all about doing a lot of damage. Justice, which is about managing threat on the table. Leadership, where you get to command and kind of play around with allies in the game. And then protection is kind of protect the entire table. And so you pick one of those, and those archetypes, you add cards from that aspect into your deck to round out your final deck. And so my favorite is protection as well. So Nathan and I, we got it. But I do just love support in any game, and protection is a really good way to do that. Being able to defend for the table, heal the table, block for everybody. And I feel like protection helps enable other players to do what they want to do. And I get satisfaction and joy out of doing that in a game.
Steve?
There is that 5th aspect, the pool aspect, which came with Deadpool. Very relevant, right? Deadpool and Wolverine movie out right now. People are going to want to play Deadpool. The Deadpool pack comes with a 5th aspect, but you're only going to find cards for that aspect in the Deadpool pack. They're not included anywhere else. And they are high risk for reward. So they're adding, half of them. You're going to put out, you're going to make the game harder for yourself, but you're going to benefit from that for half of them. And the other half are 4th wall breaking cards. We're going to play war or tic-tac-toe, or you can do these funny things. Just because I'm going to say the pool aspect today. I had a great time playing Ant-Man pool recently, and but I focused on those meta games. So trying to play tic-tac-toe or war with him and do these odd things you don't normally do. It's really fun. And when you play that aspect, you add an additional set of cards to the game, so you might make it even harder on yourself. So if it's not pool, then it's justice. I like the little bit of a control. Either I'm way out of control or I like to have control. So
I've seen some Domino and Magic pool deck builds and Spider-Woman that just synchronize so well with that war and the tic-tac-toe and all that, where you needing to look at the top card of your deck and knowing what that is. And they all 3 have the ability
rock, paper, scissors.
Well,
it would be great with Magic. Oh, yeah.
Pretty well consistently know what the top card of their deck is at all times. And it just, that and the little Cosmo ally. Yeah. So Nathan, you said protection. Aaron, what's your favorite aspect?
Probably justice. I like them all except protection. I haven't cared for any of the protection decks I've played.
Well,
is that because you're taking most of your protection actions sort of out of sequence, you think?
Probably. I don't think it's just not my play style that I really enjoy.
It's a lot of people. I mean, if I had to venture a guess, I would say that most people that I've asked, what is their least favorite, not of the 4 originally anyway, not setting pool aside. Because a lot of people just haven't either didn't know pool existed or just haven't played it. But all along, I think probably protection has most consistently been responded as their least favorite. And I think there's a couple parts of it. One is to maybe the idea that of what you just had asked about there, Steve, about, or maybe it's not kind of doing things out of sequence and it's kind of hampering yourself a little bit. But then there also may be you may truly need a natural bend toward wanting to play a support character, and like Nelson had kind of mentioned, and I think that's kind of where I come from too on that. What is such a draw for me for protection, as well as I think to a lesser degree justice, that a lot of times you're more so not allowing the villain to advance closer to the game end, as opposed to trying to push the heroes toward the game end, as in damaging the villain. So I think that just maybe it's just a different play style, and that's okay, which is awesome because there's, really, I think the 5 aspects allow for almost any type of play style with basically any hero.
I wouldn't know. I play Doctor Strange. I do it all.
You know what? You're right.
He doesn't. You could play Doctor Strange with 25 blank cards with resources on them, and that invocation deck is going to be what you do.
Oh, absolutely.
Like 110%. Yeah, and he's good. I mean, he's good. I think as of recently, Doctor Strange has like dropped down a little bit in, I don't know, tier rankings or whatever. I'll leave that for the YouTube guys, for you YouTube guys to do your tier rankings. But I think Doctor Strange is not quite as, he's still crazy powerful, right? The invocation deck is unique. There's nothing else like it in the game. He has everything. Every new card that comes out that gives him the ability to ready just empowers that invocation deck that much more. Like he's just unreal. But I don't think he's this end all be all answer to every single situation like he used to be.
I agree.
But my favorite aspect's leadership. I love leadership. I love allies. I love the ally cards, and I love playing allies. I love attaching upgrades to allies. I like, having Rocket Raccoon out on the board with 14 different upgrades, or Tony Stark out on the board or Iron Man rather, out on the board with 14 upgrades on him and him readying and doing 14 different things. It just feels like I'm playing 2 heroes at that point. It feels like cheating. It's awesome. I love leadership. I love bolstering the table. I like the ability to play like lead from the front on a buddy, or play Moxie or whatever have you there. I like having the allies out to kind of do the protection. Protection is my second favorite aspect, but to kind of do what you guys were talking about and kind of defend for the table and have like I can get my ally to jump in front of this attack for you. If you're trying not to defend this turn, or so on and so forth. I really, really like it.
I think if you're talking about the leadership, I think one of probably the single coolest part of leadership, probably the single coolest, to me, I think maybe the coolest card in the game, the one that makes more people go, yeah, at our tables when we play, is probably Maria Hill. When Nelson introduced us earlier in the year, at least our gaming group, to the Cyclops with Maria Hill and Rapid Response. And then it's like, let's see how many cards that Maria can draw for the table.
Oh, yeah. It's so broken.
I love that deck.
I think even Andrew played that on Tuesday. And I think I was with Ant-Man, and I think I had 13 cards in my hand when I got ready to start my turn. And I was like, can I draw 2 more, please? Then I can play my entire hand.
Yeah, friend of ours.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say friend of ours, Funky Monkey Monk. He's been on our show a couple times. He's got this Maria Hill deck that like 22 times a game he'll recycle her and stuff. To the point where at the recent Con of Heroes, he brought like re-arted cards of her to give out to people and things like that. So
that's awesome.
That's really cool.
It was fun.
So that let's go into this real quick. So we talked about that Maria Hill build, right? That's with the Cyclops, and that recursion for that, and it can really like a build like that. And what Maria Hill does, for anybody not knowing, it's a card you play. She's an ally. You play her to the table, and everybody at the table gets to draw a card. And the deck that we're talking about essentially lets you put her down, use her, and every time an ally does something, it takes a bit of damage. It keeps allies from staying out on the table indefinitely, because allies are some of the stronger cards in the game, because they come in, they can do damage, they can take some threat off, and then they can take a hit for you. They are usually some of the stronger cards in this game. But the deck build that we're talking about here essentially lets you play Maria Hill. Everybody draws a card. Do something with her. Take an attack. Maybe force the villain to attack with some other thing. Kill her. and then trigger a card that you've also played down, rapid response or a regroup or whatever have you, and then play her again. And Cyclops has the ability to search out tactic cards, and those cards, I don't know if both of them are, but one of them is a tactic, right? Which one, rapid response or regroup?
Both.
Both are tactics. I know one's a preparation. I didn't know they were both tactics because I had a Black Widow leadership.
Yep.
Kind of prep.
Rapid response is the preparation, and then they're both tactics.
Yeah,
They're both
and
tactics.
Cyclops has a unique ability in alter ego form to search out a tactic from his deck. He is built around tactics. And so he keeps playing those and keeps playing Maria Hill. And she has 2 health. And one of those makes them come into play with 1 damage on them. And so she comes into play, everybody draws a card, she does one thing, she goes back, she gets triggered back with regroup, you play her again, she comes back, everybody draws a card, she does one thing, she goes back, goes back. And it's just, card draw is so strong in this game because you play cards from your hand by discarding cards. If a card has 2 cost, I have to discard, for the most part, 2 cards to play that card because cards are resources. Some count as more, but for the most part, 2 for 2, right? Without getting too deep in the weeds with mechanics. And so card draw literally gives you more options for what to play. Not only does it give you more options as you have more cards in your hand, I could play this one instead of that one, it gives you more resources to play bigger cards, more bigger cards and have bigger turns. And that is what we call a broken, I mean, broken in quotation marks, right? It's a cooperative game. Nothing's really broken. But what do we think of that? Like, how often do you guys have any deck builds? Because I know there are some that I've played before that I look at and I'm like, I'm not going to play that deck because it's just so strong. Like, do you guys ever come across that? Where
I'll try a deck out once or twice. I don't care if a deck is like super strong, then I just play against a tougher villain. Or if a deck isn't really all that great. Like some of the pre-con decks maybe aren't optimized, right? So I still like to play those. A really powerful deck just means I can put in all the toughest stuff. I don't mind winning once in a while. I don't mind losing once in a while. So as long as I get to play. And sometimes, I mean, you're a superhero, right? Sometimes it's okay to be like, yeah, look at what we did. This is awesome. Yeah. And not all the time, not every game, not forever.
Well, that's what I mean. Is not, I'm never going to play this. But if I play something and I see, that was really effective, like that was a very efficient deck, I'm probably not going to play that 6 more games in a row. Right? I'm probably going to play it, see it strong, put it up, and play something else. Is what I'm getting.
So I play this game to have fun. Sometimes those encounters are fun. Sometimes that's fun for me. And maybe not everybody's concept of fun, especially in these kind of games, is different. And man, did I have a good time just wrecking things, or did I not? Right. And at a certain point, any deck I find like won't be fun anymore. I like to play all the heroes. There's 50 some heroes. Work my way around. Somebody might only play, I don't know, let's say Vision. I know there's a guy out there who just plays Vision, right? I'm looking at Boom Guy. At a certain point, I would be bored playing that deck, even if it is super powerful. Maybe it's a mediocre deck. Maybe I've had a great time with it in the past, but like at a certain point, I got to try something else. So I'm looking at Nelson's deck right now. This looks like great. I'm going to play this on my next 4-player game with my guys who, and we're going to have a great time because that's what it's about, sitting around the table, having fun. And this looks like fun for me. So.
Oh, Nelson, it's your deck where that kind of spurred on the conversation. What do you think?
Yeah, I like to play that deck. One, because if I'm walking into a group and I do not know what the group dynamic is, and when you get up into higher player counts, and this may be something that kind of phases over into what could the game do better, it feels like you have to kind of fill a role at the table. Mm-hmm. And if you don't necessarily know what you're walking into, who you're going to be playing with, it can be kind of hard to predict what you can or should be doing. Whereas that deck can be kind of agnostic of role. It's just like it's pass cards out and you all be crazy and have fun. And then you're drawing the cards too, so you get to have some fun along with it. And so while I do think that deck is probably bordering on that overpower, it is one that I will continuously play. I think the only one that I have kind of played a couple of times, but it's overpowered enough that I'm just like, you know what? That's probably not gonna come back out on the table. Is a Star-Lord leadership deck that's all about pumping up the Iron Man ally. So Star-Lord gives all of your allies the Guardian trait. And Iron Man is an ally that reduces the cost of any upgrade you play on Iron Man by 1. And most upgrades that go onto allies are 1 cost. Then if you combine that with a card called Guardians of the Galaxy, every time you play an upgrade on an ally, you get to draw a card. And so Iron Man becomes the strongest being in the galaxy at that point, because he's, running around with 14 different upgrades and you've drawn 14 cards and you're just like, oh, and it's really fun, but it's like, it kind of trivializes a lot of the encounters.
I guess I'm sounding like a hypocrite here because my favorite aspect is leadership, and what you just described is my favorite way to play. It's my favorite thing to do. But I had I've played that Star-Lord build. I played Iron Man with Star-Lord, and I've played Cap with Iron Man as my quote unquote my Civil War deck, and then had a Nebula build that went off of Galaxy's Most Wanted. And
did a similar thing with Rocket in that. Yeah.
She it's unreal, dude. Like you get all the Guardian allies down and attach all that stuff to him, and you're drawing a card every time. I think Galaxy's Most Wanted, that card it's up there in strength of utility for some of the most utility prone cards in the game. Like one of the strongest utility cards. Yeah,
it's cool.
It's nuts. But yeah, that, I guess I am a little bit of a hypocrite because that is my favorite way to play. But that Nebula deck is super strong, and I can take it and swap it into another Guardian if I want to. But it's super strong, and I find myself going, man, I kind of want to play that, but it's so strong. I'm going to play something else this time just to see how that goes.
Yeah. Well, we have so many heroes to choose from, right? You can't play no matter what the deck is, you can't play the same deck too many times because there's just so many, depending on how often you play the game, right? Yeah. I feel like Nelson and Josh and I, maybe we play the game more than your average player, right? I'm playing several times a week, maybe. Some people are maybe playing once a month. And in those cases, you want to play a crazy deck, one of these, right? Where Hill breaks the game kind of a thing. But if you're playing the game 5-6 times a week, yeah, you're not going to keep playing one of these decks. You're going to swap out. I'm going to play Scarlet Witch, or I need to play Spider-Man, or I'm going to play Iron Man. And there's so many to choose from. So I think how often do you play will impact what are you playing. So.
I totally agree with that. And I think, are you guys in the same boat of that I am, where I actively try to rotate what heroes that I'm playing for, kind of basically for that reason, that it's like, I haven't played whoever, this past week, it's like, hey, I haven't played Ant-Man in a while. You know what? I'm going to play Ant-Man as part of this form flipping thing. That sounds great. I haven't played him I don't think I'd played him since last summer, because I had rotated through all of these other heroes for the past 10 or 12 months. And then fast forward to now, hey, I hadn't played Ant-Man in ages.
I don't know what that's like. I just play Doctor Strange.
I had a permanent Adam Warlock deck built for Aaron for a long time.
You did. It was the Wild Tutor one.
No. Yeah, Brian.
You're having fun, right? So it's okay.
Yeah, that's all, man. Yeah. It's cooperative. Don't judge me.
Well, and how often do you play?
Oh, like once a week, maybe.
Yeah, so seems fair.
All right, so let's so just real quick, what's everybody's favorite villain? Just real brief, and then I want to move into talking about some criticisms we have. Real brief. Steve, what is your favorite villain? Top 3 if you want to, but just
top 3. And now it's like choosing between my children. And I'm on record of saying this quite a few times, so I'm just gonna stick with this broken record. I'm gonna say Crossbones out of the Rise of Red Skull box. He has 3 main schemes, which is awesome, but they're very low threat threshold, so you advance through them. If he's lucky, he advances through them. He gets to put in any 2 modular sets that you want, so you get to see different things interacting different ways without watering down his deck. And he has a experimental weapons deck that sits off to the side, where he attaches different weapons and things to himself, which gives him He gains piercing. He gains all these different abilities, and every time it's a little bit different. He's not super difficult. In solo, those low threat thresholds means you have to choose when you're going to flip to alter ego. He can go fast on you. Machine gun does a lot of damage. He's fun to play with new players, I think, if they're past like the Rhino stage. So I think it's still Crossbones. I really like the Hood for similar reasons. I enjoy Sandman as well a lot. So there you go. I gave you 3.
Nathan, that's good. I like all 3 of those. Nathan, you want to go next?
I think my it's hard for me to not choose Crossbones as well for a very long time. I like that encounter. Is one that I think that in general I can even use relatively early when teaching a new player. He's not my first, like I won't usually hand him out as the first villain, but usually when somebody is on their, even maybe their 4th or 5th game, Crossbones is usually one that I'll go over to. But even when it's just a bunch of us that have been playing for years or sitting down to play, I still love that encounter. And then probably also from the Rise of Red Skull box, Red Skull. I absolutely love him as an encounter. It's so different with the side schemes going in, and then the modulars that you choose. If you're mixing up the modulars and not using the ones that are printed, like just makes him wildly different based on what you're using there. And then I think my third would be Insabanur Apocalypse from the Age of Apocalypse, the 5th villain in the Age of Apocalypse box. I just think that's a really solid encounter. And then it also added Apocalypse has been one of my favorite Marvel villains since I was a kid. So also
Aaron?
Steve is actually my favorite villain. But
Yes, thank you. All right, we'll talk later about the payment I owe you.
Be 2 shekels.
Mine would I like Green Goblin and Venom Goblin. Venom Goblin is just a really tough fight that I went 1-1 with him so far. But I think my favorite fight that I enjoy is Kang. I really enjoy the mechanic that Kang brings to the game. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who wants to try to play Kang, or if they haven't, But I just love that mechanic he pulls out.
That's a good option. He's great.
Nelson.
Yeah, I think Kang would probably be in my top 3. I think he tells a story. I've always said that my favorite is Hela from the Mad Titan Shadow box. Very, very kind of different of a villain. She's immortal until she's not, and you kind of have to be progressing through these different side quests to try and find Odin in order to be able to strike that killing blow on Hela. So it's got a different pacing to the game than a lot of the other encounters do in the game, and so I've just really liked that. I actually really love the Lord of the Rings LCG, and I just see a lot of design inspiration from Lord of the Rings in the Hela scenario, and so there's a little bit of love there. King is really good, and then you know what, I have to talk about Ultron, even from the core box. You get 3 villains in the core box, and I still think that Ultron, which is the 3rd villain in the box, is one of the best villains in this whole game, where Ultron's creating these drones out of your deck, and so his mechanic is you're putting the top card of your deck in as like these really weak minions, but also you're losing cards, and then there's a lot of them, and so it's just really fun to try and figure out how to take that on and manage that, for lack of a better term, threat that Ultron is putting out. And so I think Ultron from the core box just is a fantastic villain.
If I may, Hela, just as an interesting side, the only in a multiplayer, like say a 4-player game, the only villain to ever knock me out in round 1 was Hela, and she did it to me twice in less than a month.
Nice.
That's Venom Goblin for me.
Yeah, we had Thanos did that to my wife when we played Mad Titan Shadow, killed her first turn. Drang did that to our buddy Zach one time. And what one were we playing the other day, Aaron?
Magneto
killed.
Yeah.
Who'd he kill?
It was Zach.
Was
when
it?
we
I
were
don't.
playing.
Oh, it was Zach. Yeah, because Zach was playing Ironheart. He killed
Yeah.
Ironheart turn 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Just-
what was it? That other set we were playing with. The one.
Oh,
that
it was
bombed.
the challenge.
Yeah.
The one. I can't remember what it was. Oh, it was. We did Magneto with Iron Spider Sinister 6.
Yeah.
And Boom Boom, that comes
Boom
out as a boost. And if she does a damage to, does one indirect damage to everybody. And if you take a damage, you exhaust. And so Magneto just kept attacking. We couldn't stop him. And then Boom Boom came out as a boost card at one point, dealt 1 damage to everybody, and exhausted everyone because it was turn 1. We didn't have anything down. And
Jeez.
Magneto kept hitting. Just, I mean, I bet he attacked him 4 times.
I think he attacked like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, it was unreal.
You mean Bombshell, not Boom Boom, but
Bombshell.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, Bombshell.
That was it.
Actually,
Yeah, that one.
yeah.
Actually, yeah, push your fedora back up on your head.
Yes. Well, the only reason I know that is because the next question you're going to ask is, what's your favorite modular? And Iron Spider Sinister 6 is one of my top 2 favorites. So
I was going to skip over favorite modular, but let's go ahead and talk about favorite modular. My favorite villain, by the way, Juggernaut. Love Juggernaut.
ooh, good.
I like Taskmaster. He's one of my favorites. I just like Taskmaster because it's fun to free up the allies that come through, and he can be sneaky difficult with the damage he does when you flip for flippy heroes. And then not Magnet, but Mysterio. I love Mysterio. He's just super great. But modular, favorite modulars, real quick. Nelson, what's your favorite modular?
There's so many. I'm gonna just go ahead and say Galactic Artifacts. I really like this. This is from the Galaxy's Most Wanted box, and it's a ton of different like attachments and side schemes that are like bad, but then some of the side schemes are like give you benefits when you take them out, and so I just find that really fun. I like drawing cards.
Cool. Steve?
So Iron Spider Sinister 6, this is a bunch of minions that all have some neat little ability to them. There's a lot of boost effects on it. At least there's a couple. Can make it a lot of fun. But honorable mention, and Josh, you should play this when you play Taskmaster, is put in Down to Earth. So Down to Earth came in the Sinister Motives box.
Yeah, I like that one.
And it has a bunch of stuff that interacts with your alter ego form. So not just hero stuff, right? There's common criminals that you can do alter ego form stuff. Friends and family, where it's like an extra obligations. You can go do volunteer work. You have to decide what form you want to be in. Goes get your obligation again. So if you want to flip back and forth, Down to Earth, I think is a real fun and can kind of change the dynamic of any villain that you're playing with because of the focus on alter ego actions.
Mojo's sitcom does that quite a bit. It's in the sitcom from Mojo. Yeah. Aaron.
I don't know if I have a favorite modular set. I don't think I've played enough to really have it. I know I have one that I hate. That's Doomsday Chair.
Okay.
Perfect. There you go.
And that's from the core box, man. Like how well has the core box held up over
it's
5 years?
great.
that-
Yeah.
Yeah. Nathan?
I think Iron Spider is definitely one that's up there. I think in general, as probably Wrecking Crew. One, just I feel like that when they start hitting the table, they are meaner than the actual villains. And so I kind of appreciate that part. But I think I generally am more drawn to modular sets that add more minions than not. So about any, I guess that's why Iron Spider and Sinister Assault, even Wrecking Crew, some of those, and then several, the teamwork ones, Nasty Boys and Acolytes and so forth. Nasty Boys, I think I have a soft spot for, though, because of Ruckus from just the old love of the cartoon, where Ruckus looks at the X-Men. I think he was maybe a Cyclops, and he was like, you better watch your mouth and mine, and then he blows them away.
Blows them away. Yeah, nice.
So,
Nice.
what about you, Josh? What's your favorite?
My favorite modular is probably Armadillo. I really like Armadillo. I like the modulars that have like unique minions with them. It just feels cool putting those in there, and when they come out and their little special stuff going on. That one, I really like Scorpion, the A Mess of Things modular. Really, really love that one. Just like Scorpion as a villain. And then the one that puts out all the side schemes, and its name is escaping me, and it has the treachery that triggers all the win revealed on side schemes.
Oh,
State of
City in
Emergency?
Crisis, maybe?
City in Crisis?
Or State of Emergency.
State of Emergency.
State of emergency, yeah.
Yeah, that is, I love it so much. And
Yeah,
we just had a very memorable session. We were playing, Aaron was playing Doctor Strange, and he drew Shadows of the Past. And so his Nemesis came out, and his Nemesis side scheme came out, and it makes him put a card from his invocation deck underneath. Well, then we proceeded to draw the State of Emergency card that triggers when revealed on side schemes 2 more times, and it kept pulling cards away from his invocation deck and sticking them under there. And it was just a really cool interaction there. Now, it ended up working out for him because it was just what you have left was Bands of Sidorak, and the one that lets you draw 3 cards were the only 2 you have left.
Yeah, and the one that gave tough status.
Yeah,
So it worked out great.
it worked out for him that time, but it was a cool interaction. All right, so let's move on to our kind of last little session here. I just want to ask, like, do you guys feel like there's anything that the game could do better? Like, do we have any criticisms with the game? Like, the whole point of this was to be a love letter to the game, right? We love this game. Obviously, that is true. We all love this game. We all have a special relationship with this game, but we wouldn't truly love it if we didn't point out, some flaws, if any, of the game. And what, do we think it has any? If anybody wants to go on that.
I'll jump in here. The hero bias, the clear hero bias. They give these heroes so many great cards, and the villains just have to suffer through. So, clear hero bias. I think there's a couple heroes that have been a miss for me. Just not my play style, but 50 some heroes. Who cares? There's plenty to choose from. I think another one I'd like to see more like a Hela or a Kang, where you progress through the story within it, which is why I kind of like Crossbones. Magneto has that. There's the opportunity, I think, to do a little bit more of that and have it maybe be less of it's really a boss battle, right? This game is a boss battle for the most part, but I love those ones where there's like something else going on, and they've done great with those ones. So I'd just like to see more of those. If that's more of a wish list, I guess, than a criticism. So.
Okay.
I think the thing that I struggle with most is the game can be pretty challenging at higher player count games, especially when not everybody at the table is super experienced at the game. And that being said, like the game caps at 4 technically. And I've played a lot of 4-player games that I've absolutely loved. But if there's newer players at the table, the game can take a long time. And so while my probably favorite player count is 2, 3 is great. I play 1 probably in the majority. The top end of that spectrum I have found to be pretty challenging, especially with new players, which I have in then turn seen be turned off of the game because it took 3 hours.
Yeah, when we play our 4-player games, we take simultaneous turns. We're all experienced players, so we're playing ahead a little bit. We know certain things we can't do or we can do on each other's turn, which makes it cooperative. Right? Those basic actions sort of hold off, but just in order to get the game in a 4-player moving a little quicker, we're not necessarily telling each other what we're doing. Like in a 2-player game, I don't know, you're like, oh, watch me do this thing. I'm going to swing web kick into him, and then I'm going to put my gauntlets and I'm going to do this thing. And everybody's watching and talking. In a 4-player game, it's more of, I did my turn. Okay, oh, your turn. And people aren't communicating as much, just to try to keep the pace going. So
we will we play with 3-player health a lot of times when we play at the shop. on the 4-player games, just to make it a little shorter. And if we get to a point at the end where we've bashed it and we feel like maybe he needed that health, we'll just add it on to the second stage. We add all the health onto the end stage, make it go another round. We'll go through there, put him in his harder session a little longer, put the villain in their harder session a little longer, but just because to try to curb that length of play, because we play 4 players so much, we'll do them with 3-player health. And it seems like it doesn't really nerf them too bad. Aaron, Nathan, any qualms or criticisms about the game?
My only complaint is the price. I just wish it was cheaper. I'm too poor for this.
I feel like it's a good price.
Well, I mean, I think kind of like Steve alluded to, the idea that there's so many heroes, like it's okay for if they're all not for you. And I think the only hero so far that I'm like that absolutely just frustrates me is Valkyrie. So I think but there's been a couple, and then that kind of general consensus in most of the community that they kind of whiffed on a little bit. So it's just that's probably my criticisms would just be those few heroes. Hulk, to a lesser degree, Hawkeye. Like, I love to play Hawkeye, but he is definitely not as didn't get quite as much love as most of the other characters, as far as being able to pull off some of the stuff he wants to pull off without maybe a little bit of help. So
He's a little more conservatively built than some, you think?
Yeah. So
He's a dude with a bow and arrow, right? I mean, come on.
no, I get you.
No, I know. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So it's I think that I guess probably maybe interestingly, I don't know, that like when I watch other people do solo plays on streams online, I love doing it. I do it all the time. But for me, I guess it's probably the opposite. I would much rather play at 2, 3, or 4 players than to play solo, because I always find that, like, for me, I want to hyper focus on something in my deck building styles, and just not just champions, but I mean, anytime, even playing Magic the Gathering back in the 90s, like, I wanted to do one cool thing and do it awesome. And you kind of in many encounters in Champions, you can't quite do that usually in solo, at least from my limited experience of that. So kind of having to be a jack of all trades and maybe include some cards or not include some cards, I guess, from my perspective, that you maybe would kind of like to include, but it's like, well, this I can't afford to put this in here because I don't have the deck space, because I need to do all these other things that to try to keep from getting myself wrecked because it's just me. So
that's why I play 4 characters when I play solo.
Play 4-handed. So
wow,
that is something I've never done. I've never played 2-handed or more. So I don't have the mental prowess to do that, or the desire to do that at all.
you got a point though. So a solo game and a 3-player game are different games, different deck building styles. I much prefer to play 2 or 3 players as well, like the camaraderie around the table, right? It's a cooperative game. I don't want to cooperate with somebody. So, but I'll play solo if I need to, just to get my Marvel Champion fix in.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely glad to have the solo option, because well, it has bred the streaming community with awesome folks like Nelson and D20 and recent guys like Web Warrior Fanatic and Daring Lime. Those have been just it's fun to watch, and I mean, I don't think those would exist if the solo option wasn't there. I mean, I'm not sure how it would, other than to do some with people that are doing multiplayers. But I mean, I just think it would be far less. So it's just an interesting thing for me. Like, it's not quite a criticism. It's something that for me it's not for me as far as how the game is currently constructed. So
I got one. I want to see what you guys think on it. We have the meeting of the minds here. I feel like a lot of times in this game, and it is my one big gripe, and I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of doing it. is that at the end of the game, when you get towards your last 1 or 2 turns, it becomes math. Just as much, what math can we put out to, can we do this? And then, oh, I can do this. And if we don't do this, we can swap this around. And it is so mathy, trying to just pinpoint. He's got 35 health left. What can we do at the tape? Rather than just, oh, I want to play this and want to play that. I'm trying to optimize. And it may be a me problem, right? Like a me and how I'm looking at the game and how I'm interacting with the game. That it just feels like it is so, you're trying to math out those final turns so much more than you are your initial turns to try to push that damage, or in certain scenarios, push that thwart. What do you guys think about that?
I view that as tenseness, and I enjoy that part of the game where if the game comes down to, it's like, okay, if I can figure out how to push 35 points of damage next round, we can win, because if the villain goes 2 more rounds, I'm going to lose. And so like that can be really tense and really exciting and really fun. But it does come down to a math game at some point. And so I guess like I would recommend, or I would just kind of think of it more as like, yeah, that's the end point, but it's like you got there through the journey of playing the game, and like you got to that point, but it does feel like you do want a big climactic moment at the end of a superhero film, right? So I can see it.
I agree with that. With what you just said there, Nelson. I do agree with you, Josh, in that it does come down to math most of the time. But I guess for me, I feel like it's like thematically, like somebody like, say, Captain America or Cyclops or so forth, these, what I would consider some of the master tacticians, if you will, on the hero side, kind of sitting in the war room going, hey, this is what we're going to do. Or even if it's on the field saying, hey, here's our opening team, this is what we need to do. We've got him on the ropes, and this is our final push. To me, my X-Men, if you will, Avengers Assemble, and then you just kind of, dive on. So it is exciting. It can't, for me, it feels exciting. Like I've chosen, I guess, maybe to look at it from that lens of, hey, this is that tension, that excitement. But yeah, it is math at that point.
Yeah. Well,
Josh, I have a homebrew for you.
Okay. What is it?
This will change your last turn gameplay. You don't get to win, even if the villain's at 0 health, until the end of the entire turn, which means, sure, you knock him down, but he finishes his villain phase.
Oh, I like that.
Then you're like, oh, I still have to worry about the 3 minions on the table and the 2 side schemes and the main scheme triggering and all these sort of things, instead of just, can I do 35 points of damage?
I like that. I really, really like that, because I think that is another little. I hesitate to say gripe. Like the game's amazing, right? Like the game's incredible. But I'm an opinionated straight white guy, so I'm going to mention something that I don't. Right, it's what I do. It's what we do.
Kind of our thing.
Yeah, it's kind of our thing. I have an opinion, and I need people to know about it.
I'm sitting in front of my microphone. Here we are.
Yes, I've given myself a soapbox. I've manufactured a platform for me. But yeah, when you're trying to if you have a minion without guard, it's just, okay, well, Aaron drew Shadows of the Past. We're just ignoring that. Like Baron Mordo is an afterthought. We're not worrying about Baron Mordo. We're not worrying about, the Juggernaut minion that came out. Those are no longer threats because we can math out 42 damage onto the villain. Well, what happens to those guys? Like in quote unquote reality, in the narrative, they're still hanging around. Like Juggernaut's still there smashing stuff. But it's like, no, we beat Mr. Sinister. We don't care what Juggernaut does. He's just in the background smashing the hell out of the town. And we're just standing over Sinister like, we did it. We did it.
I think, at least in our game group, Josh, you and I, and especially, you and I almost always look for the clean game.
Oh,
to see if we can take all the minions out, to see if we can clean up all the side schemes, to see if we can thwart the main scheme without jeopardizing the game. Like to lose, it's like we want to still, come away with the victory, but let's see if we can do those things. But then also looking at it like, okay, does it look like we can do it this turn or next turn? Like, if maybe we're running a little long on the game, or if it's getting a little late, it's like, well, we don't want to push somebody here another half hour, 45 minutes that maybe needs to go ahead and go. So let's just go ahead and finish this. But yeah, I think that's also part of it, to be able to. I really like that idea, Steve, by the way, and I'm sure we'll try that. Between me and Josh, or both, our tables at the shop, I think we'll probably have to try that sometime soon.
Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
No, I was just saying cool. Just responding.
All right. So again, I got one more question, and it's something we've mentioned D20 a few times. I want to call him out a little bit. I love his stream. Absolutely love his stream. But I got a couple problems with a couple of his takes, and I want to get your all's opinions on this. D20 Woodworking, by the way, go watch his streams. Go check out his YouTube. Fantastic content creator. Awesome insights on the game. Does some really good content for that. Check out everybody in the community, for anyone listening. Everyone that creates content for this game, it's a labor of love, right? They do it because they enjoy the game. They're worth a view. Go check them out. But one of his takes, and he's mentioned a couple times, is that he would like, and I don't want to do him injustice. So if I'm misquoting or whatever, let me know. But it seems that he would like the entry level of the game for some of the boxes. I know he talked about this for Next Evolution, I believe, to be more difficult. Do you guys feel like the entry level for the game, like the sit down, play standard, is that a good difficulty level? Do you feel like it could use, like, not like Galaxy's Most Wanted level, but maybe a little bit of tuning up? Or what do you think?
No, I think just from having, how many people that we have introduced to the game at the shop, Josh, me, you, everybody that's been down there over these years, and seeing how, because most people are coming into this and they've not necessarily been neck deep in the tabletop gaming hobby, whether it's with card games, board games, role-playing games, whatever. A lot of times this is their first foray into anything like this, and it is, I don't feel like, I feel like it would be a turnoff for a great number of those folks that are coming in kind of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to this world. And like we've mentioned earlier about where it's cooperative, it's like, hey, you can kind of suck up some of this. The other people at the table, can hopefully help you figure stuff out, and you're not just getting your brains beat in because you're a new guy sitting at a Magic table or whatever game. But that's kind of the big dog. So as far as in card gaming worlds, but yeah. So I've played mostly in standard and still have plenty of losses, and maybe that's because I'm not a very good player. I don't know, but just to say, like, it's the game still regularly, especially with the modulars, being able to throw in, like we did with Magneto, throwing in Iron Spider Sinister Six and go, whose idea was this? Or putting Mr. Hyde with the Ultron set, and it was like, whose idea was this? Oh yeah, that was mine. Yeah, those things, I think for me, provide a sufficient challenge. Heck, we lost, me and Steven and Andrew, we lost 8 out of 9 games a few months back, and that was with me playing as Leadership Ironheart, and we also had Domino at the table. So I think most people view those as 2 relatively potent heroes, and we still kept getting handed to us. Now, granted, it was our stretch of trying to play through the Galaxy's Most Wanted and Expert, but
we're not talking about expert, so just take those losses off the table. We're talking about standard, sit down at standard. So what you just said doesn't mean anything. That was garbage tape.
No, but I'm saying, like, even not playing an expert, like, I have still had, I think I've only won one weekly challenge so far, and those have all been on standard. Granted, they've had other stuff, but I think the only weekly challenge that I've won was the first one.
I've won all of them I played. I don't know what you're talking about. You're doing something wrong.
I agree with the conversation here. I think the difficulty level for entry level is perfect. I mean, we have Caleb Grace, designer, on record saying it's not a game for kids, but it's a game we want you to be able to play with your kids. That is their target audience. That is what they want. They want you to be able to play and have a good chance of winning with precons. There are lots of people who don't deck build. I mean, I've heard it time and time again. People just do not deck build. It's something they don't have time for, so they want you to be able to play it. The entry level standard is great. You can get in there, you can play, you can win, you can lose. You can. The game is modular for a reason. You have standard, standard 2, standard 3, expert, expert 2. You have heroic mode. You have some crazy powerful villains. You have some cakewalk villains, right? Like, they've given you everything you need to customize the difficulty for your group in this game. And I hope they continue to do that. So,
Great.
Nelson?
Yeah, I would agree. I think now that you said we had 80 modular sets, if
89
modular sets. And so like the game is so customizable, and you can customize it into a level where you want to play it. And yeah, I like that about the game. I can take it, I can sit down, I can create something that's pretty easy, straightforward, that we can play with new players, or we can beat our head against the wall with expert 2 and cry a little bit along the way. So like it just has such a wide variety of difficulty, and it's so modular that you can create the game that you want it to be.
Yeah, I gotta say, that's kind of my take on it. And I think if you up the entry level, like if you boost the entry level of a game up to satiate a small, because like anybody that's listening to the show, anybody that's in the Discord, anybody that's watching a video on YouTube, you're already a small part of the community. Anyone who is seeking content outside of just owning the game is a small part of the community that is playing Marvel Champions, is playing any game. That's just the reality of how it is. The majority of people that are playing this game are not consuming outside content. That is a reality of video games, novels, whatever have you. And so if you up that level of difficulty, that barrier for entry, if you increase that, I think you have a chance of alienating new people coming into the game, because no one wants to lose. As much as we talk about, oh, it's fun to get that tension, it's fun to go. If I sit down and the first 10 games I played in Marvel Champions, I lost. No, this game's horse language. I'm not playing it anymore. It's dumb.
you need to be able to lose. The game needs to be able to beat you, but you don't want to have that on your Rhino every single, You have to lose. There has to be a challenge, but not when you're first trying to learn it. You want to be empowered. You want to feel like the superhero. You want to be able to kick somebody's butt right at the beginning and then say, okay, let's play Claw, and then discover, oh, Claw's actually pretty tough. And, now we're going to throw down Ultron and, oh, right, this is I see where the difficulty level of this game goes. So, yeah, entry level, I think it's great.
And we talk about that modularity because that's kind of the argument that gets thrown back is, oh, well, if I think the game needs to be more difficult and people tell me, well, you can do it modular, you can use modulars to raise the difficulty. Well, you can use modulars to decrease the difficulty, right? You can make it easier.
Yep.
But if we're raising the barrier for entry, people's first encounters with these games, the first time they're sitting down, usually they're not thinking about, let me change it to make it easier, right? They don't even really know, they don't own enough, or they don't know how to swap that around to make it easier.
It's just not available in the core box. You're already playing the easiest thing in the core box if you just bought the core, right? You have Bomb Scare and Rhino. So,
but you're playing, you're usually the first time you run through Villain, the first time you play, you're looking at what's the recommended setup. I'm putting that in. You increase the difficulty there just for the standard recommended stuff, and you can run the risk of alienating some people, right? Because that's their first interaction with the game, their first experience.
Yeah.
So that's my take. I thought it was a very interesting thing. And I think there is room for some end bosses to be a little harder, especially in these campaigns, like to boost and play with some difficulty there, because that's what they're billed as. I think Magneto's a very good spot for them. I think Insaba Nur was a little on the easy side. But that's me.
How about some Venom Goblin or some Ronin?
Yeah. And those are outliers. Yes, right. Like they are outliers, but they're end bosses, right? That's okay. I mean, Ronin, the Galaxy Plus one has its own things.
Right, because Drang is pretty good, and Sandman is fine. And
yeah. I thought that was interesting. I wanted to get some other members of the community's take on it, and I'm not disparaging D20 on his take. Like, he's entitled to his opinion, and I love his content. And I started to reach out to him to see if he'd be interested in doing this, but I didn't. I'd love to have him on the show.
But Josh, I think you have a good point too. Is anyone who's making content is deep into the game, right?
Yeah.
Anybody listening, consistently tuning into YouTube channels, listening to podcasts, seeking out blogs, interacting on the Facebook pages, people are more into the game, more active, playing more games, wanting different difficulties, wanting more complexity, doing those different things. But you have a lot of people who show up at a friend's house. The friend is the one who bought the game. They don't even own anything. They sit down, they get given a deck, and they play. And so you have a small minority, I think, are the deep internet folks, and then you have a bigger group that are the casual players. I think that's just the way it probably is.
I think we can get into like an echo chamber sometimes when we ingrain ourselves in these communities where we think like our experience is indicative of the overall general experience of a game. And just by nature of us reaching out to third-party sites or, outside or these internal communities for the game, we are already not the general populace that's playing. We're not the dude that got Marvel Champions for Christmas and plays it 4 or 5 times a year with buddies and may pick up a hero every now and then. Right. We're the all in.
Right.
And I think sometimes people can lose that perspective when they interact so much. That's something I saw a lot in MMOs over the years in that community, where you feel like your experience is indicative of the general experience, and it's just not the case.
I think the barrier to entry just from some of the previous living card games like Android Netrunner, even recently, more recently, I should say, Arkham Horror and Legend of the Five Rings. I think those, just as a retailer, I experienced how those 3 games have, Arkham Horror to a lesser degree than the other 2, but a lot of people were either maybe bought the core set and then almost immediately bounced out of the game because of how difficult it was, like just how much trouble they had getting going. Just figuring the game out. So yeah, I really appreciate where Champions is from that perspective. I've just had maybe one guy in 5 years to make a purchase from me that was not like that didn't come down and have me teach anyway, or somebody at the shop, which I mean it's normally me, but just to say like there's somebody to try to learn at home that has bought and then kind of come back and be like, man, I just having too much a hard time with this. And it's like, okay. And then kind of talking to them, it's like, well, what other experience do you have? And it was their first experience in card games. Like they'd never played Magic or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or Lord of the Rings or any other card games besides like a Phase 10 and Rummy and Uno type of stuff. So.
Okay. Well, anybody else have any thing they want to bring up while we're in this little portion? Are you good, Nelson?
No, I think I agree with everything that was said.
Aaron, you got anything? You've been quiet.
I concur.
All right, good deal. Add to the conversation, buddy. Thank you. You are the Ed McMahon to my Johnny Cars.
I try.
All right. We got a few minutes left here. Let's end on what's upcoming. Let's end on the future of Marvel Champions. And not only what is directly in the future that we can see that's coming in the pipeline, because I know that's one of my favorite parts of this game is what's next. What am I getting next? What new heroes are you sending me? because I'm the world's worst at, oh, Jubilee just came out. Oh, I went and got Jubilee. I've sleeved her. I've played 2 games. Okay, man, I need Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler needs to be here right now. I have 53 release
Yeah, I wish there
heroes.
was content for this game. I wish they made some content for this. Boy, hurry up and
Yeah.
give me something new.
I'm so bad about that. I'm so just jaded gamer of I need new right now. Give it to me. I consume. You know. So we have coming down the pipeline that we know of, that we have significant information.
FG has
on,
told us.
that FFG has told us about is Nightcrawler and Magneto. Those are our next 2 heroes. Nightcrawler is coming out. So this episode will come out the 14th of September. That's when you should be listening to this, hopefully. And then Nightcrawler's coming out when? What's his release date?
End of September.
Okay, so Nightcrawler should be coming out in a couple weeks as of this episode. And then we have Magneto, which is our second villain turned hero.
Yeah.
Other than Nebula, which threw us for a loop. I don't know how many of you guys were expecting Beast?
Me.
I was
Right?
no, I was all in Magneto. Caleb's favorite villain. He has talked about him so many times, and like Magneto is a hero, right? He puts his white suit on. He runs Xavier's Institute. I mean, I was expecting we would have gotten Beast, but man, we had to have Magneto. If not, I don't think. I don't know how Caleb wouldn't have done that. So.
Yeah, I love Beast, man. I love Beast so much.
We got Beast. We got Dark Beast.
Yeah, I don't want to
We
beat
got
him up. I
hero
want to be
turned
best
villain.
friends. No,
You
Yeah.
villain, you would say that.
I'm not a villain right now, Steve. I'm not on your friggin' show.
I mean, he's
I'm a
not the
good guy
same
right
Beast, right? He's an interdimensional Beast from a different
Yeah.
multiverse, but it's still Beast. It's still Hank McCoy. Come on. Boy, you heroes are so picky.
I wanted to play as Beast. Why do you guys think we didn't get Beast?
It's possible that they said, what do we make Beast do? What is his Beast hero kit that we haven't seen already?
Yeah, that's what I think too. Is it was just hard, maybe difficult to come up with what's his
Hero
bit.
hand size of 10.
There we go. Yeah, you have to play Beast upside down.
I'm
all
okay
the
with
cards
both.
are printed
Oh,
upside
nice.
Okay with both of these things.
All right, but we got Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler's supposed to what? He's got these BAMF cards that you attach to enemies, and he can do different things based on those.
He's going to be
right?
a protection player's dream, I think, because it looks
Yeah.
like he's going to be able to bamf people away to keep them safe from the minions or move the minions or whatever, however it works. One of the, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to Nightcrawler. He feels right up my alley in terms of like a protection player, and he just seems like he's going to be able to control and mitigate so much damage. So I'm really looking forward to him.
More Cyclops energy, man. Upgrades attached to things.
Heck yeah.
Right. And then Magneto. Magneto's thing is he does the magnet counters like his villain. Now Magneto, right, with his release article, we got the least amount of card preview than we've gotten for any release article, right?
I love that. Like legit.
I really hope that they're going to give us some spoilers on our show for that.
Oh yeah, you guys get the spoilers, you lucky.
Yeah, and he's a villain, so I'm really hoping that FFG does this right. So they've been great with us in the past.
How does that work? Do they just like send you an email and they're like, "Hey, we got a spoiler for you. Do you want to do it?" Or do you email them and go, "Please give us something, please"?
This time we definitely will send that email. But we've had Xander Tabler on. He's the head, he's in charge of that kind of stuff. And I mean, FFG, I think they have a list of people they'll send previews to, and they try to cycle through. And, some waves, they've had a ton of previews. Other ones, they've been a little more sparing. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
FFG, if you're listening, let us spoil something. Come on. Huh? Why not us? We're great. We love your friggin' game. We said it was awesome. I also talk language about the end of it, and I apologize for that. And I curse sometimes, so maybe you don't want to have me on or have me do. Yeah. But I mean, do they just like send you an email and go, "Hey, we got a card for you," or do they like how do they approach you to spoil something?
Yeah, they'll ask if you want to do a spoiler. They'll provide you the spoiler. They'll give you some requirements of how you're allowed to spoil the card, when you're allowed to spoil the card, those sort of things.
Yeah, I
Preview
think,
the card. Preview the card.
Nelson, I think I remember you had a spoiler that you did that came out before or after an interview you did with them, and you had to like timey-wimey cut it weird.
Yeah, so I did an interview with both Caleb and Tony, and it was the spoiler card was one of the new player side schemes from Mutant Genesis, and we did the interview, and then we basically like stopped recording, did the spoiler card, and I think I don't remember the timing of that, but I remember like they came out like pretty far apart, like from the interview and the spoiler card recording.
You made some joke about them being in the same clothes.
Oh yeah.
I really loved that.
Yeah, because they want to put out their own articles. They got to make sure it's timed with, like, if you're doing a player side scheme, they don't want you to spoil the player side scheme before Cable came out, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then our worry is always, is there going to be a leak, and is our spoiler just already out there? Did some retailer or did some person in Europe get a hold of a card list, and now every card's available? Yeah. And all these content creators who have stuff made and going to preview cards and going to build up this, did all just get ruined. So I hate when we have those unofficial leaks come out, even if we don't have a spoiler, just because it's fun to see the spoilers that Nelson makes or whoever it is that puts out a spoiler. Those are fun, like, pieces to ramp up the excitement. So
they really are.
Yeah, I know as a consumer, the leak season is like this bittersweet, like double-edged sword. You know, where I get really excited when, you know, somebody in Norway leaks an entire pack, and I'm like, oh, now I know what they are, and I don't have any surprises. And it's
I do.
Like,
I avoid all the unofficial stuff. I like the official. I like the official stuff. So,
yeah. Same.
So speaking of other official stuff, so let's speculate a little bit. The last 5 or 10 minutes we got here, we got at what was the big
in-flight report?
Their in-flight report at Gen Con. At Gen Con, we had announced. I thought it was Gen Con. I don't know why I hesitated. We had announced the next expansion for Marvel Champions. The next campaign box is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And there has been some wild speculation through the community. And I know several people in this Discord are part of it. And we got 2 silhouettes, a gentleman, presumably, and a lady, presumably. And that's all we got. And then some like art. We got some art. And that's it. And there has been just wild speculation. Now, the male silhouette, or presumably male silhouette, that's Nick Fury, right? Like,
yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah, that's Nick Fury. It even had like the little like bump on the side where you can see his like eye patch band, right?
Yeah.
And then the girl, who do we think that is? I at first was leaning towards like, I don't know if that's Maria Hill. I think it might be Quake. And then I looked up some comic art, and then I think I was listening to Villain Theory, Nelson, or you or somebody, and they brought up some stuff, and it may be Maria Hill. Like, who do we think that is?
Maria Hill's an option, obviously. Quake, maybe. Mockingbird, maybe. Yep.
White Widow.
Yeah, the Yelena Belova
maybe
version.
maybe not for that silhouette, but just as a potential new hero in the wave.
Because they typically split some males, some females, right? You get a pretty good split down the middle.
Yeah.
So those are kind of your options, I think. So now the question is, this image that they gave us looks like a secret dossier. Are we looking at a villain's screen where they're studying these heroes, or is this a S.H.I.E.L.D. document? Right? Because that could change the idea, right? Are we looking at 2 villains if this is a S.H.I.E.L.D. thing? I don't know.
That would be.
I think they're the heroes, but you know,
that would be a wild misdirect.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we didn't know Loki was in a box, right? So
yeah, right. True that.
The villain expansion that everyone's always been asking for.
Yeah.
So so what do we think? So I saw, so there was art, right? We got a couple pieces of art that went through. The AIM art was the one that stuck with me the most. Like, are we getting a MODOK villain? Are we getting, Red Hulk? Are we getting Scientist Supreme?
Red Hulk. I didn't think of Red Hulk.
Nathan, what do you think? Who we getting? Is that just like some card in the deck or some card in the thing, and I'm just over speculating?
I mean, my guess for some villains, I think that it would be a miss if you're doing Shield and you didn't do. I mean, and potentially if you're looking at AIM, if you didn't do MODOK and Strucker, I mean, they're quite possibly the two most significant AIM villains in Marvel's history of AIM. So
you guys keep talking about this. I have to step away for 1 second.
But then I also kind of think on the hero side, I think a really cool, and Steve, based on your avatar that I'm looking at here, maybe you'll agree. I would like to see Taskmaster as a playable hero.
Yes, that'd be amazing. Like before he maybe loses his memory and all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah.
Well, I mean, is he not currently, or at least very recently, has been working with Shield to train Shield agents
back in the fold? Yeah. I'm not fully up on all his. I only use Marvel Unlimited, so there's a big delay and everything. So
fair, but just looking at, I think he would be a really cool playable hero.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I just sat back down. Who?
Taskmaster.
Okay.
As a playable hero.
If we got Taskmaster as a playable hero before like Juggernaut or Falcon, Winter Soldier, I would go set a fire at Fantasy.
Juggernaut. No.
I mean, I think this wave would lend well, perfectly to have Winter Soldier, Falcon, and Taskmaster.
X-Men would have lent to have Beast, Nathan, and yet here we are beastless.
So there is a hope for Taskmaster, is what you're saying.
Yep.
We got 13 different spider people and 14 people that wear armors, and I don't have Falcon or Winter Soldier.
I would be a little surprised if we don't get a Falcon and or Winter Soldier in this pack or in this wave.
I would too. Jokes aside, I would be very surprised.
Yeah, Coulson I think would be a great one too.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
You could dig back into preparations, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I anticipate that's what they'll do with Nick.
Yeah.
I guess if they're doing Nick Fury, I'm just not, and potentially Maria Hill. I'm not sure like how. I'm sure they would pull it off, but at the same time, like what would you be able to do to really differentiate all three of those well from each other when they're basically all three of them, their stick is basically we're spies.
Yeah. That's kind of my thing there is like, if you get too deep into the shield weeds, you get Nick Fury, Maria Hill, Coulson, Yelena Bullet. Like how do you differentiate those? Now they have, right? They obviously, again, we have 14 different spiders and we have 3 people that wear armor, and they have differentiated those very much.
Correct.
So they can do it. They absolutely can do it. And I'm going to buy whatever they put out. They could blend with DC and we get Condiment King as a playable hero. Well, I'm going to buy Condiment King. I'm not happy about it, but I'm going to buy it. Here, take my money. But yeah. And so speaking about that speculation, anything else you want to add about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Villain wise, I think AIM. I think we get Hydra again. Strucker. Like, I'm curious if they'll play off of any of the TV series or or if people are expecting the TV series and we're only, they have a comic license, they're going to play off the comics. So, we might not see guys like Graviton or the Watchdogs. But, we have to keep in mind where they're pulling from. So, and I don't know as much comic Shield stuff as maybe other people do.
Aaron, you got anything to add? Good talk, buddy. Thanks for participating. Is he there? Nathan, is he dead? For anybody that doesn't know, Nathan and Aaron are in the same house. So Nathan does not have Discord or a headset or anything. And so he's over at Aaron's on the same
I
mic.
spend all my money on champions. I can't
Nelson, you got anything you'd
I-
like to see
I-
in this way?
I don't know. Like my knowledge of Marvel pretty much is seeded with Champions, and so before anything comes out in Champions, I am pretty ignorant to whatever happens. So so I don't really know. I'm just excited for it. I guess that what I will say is that I love Lord of the Rings, right? And Lord of the Rings version of Nick Fury ally is Gandalf.
Okay.
And Nick goes in a lot of decks. Nick's a very, very good card. Gandalf goes in probably even more decks for Lord of the Rings because Gandalf's incredible. But when they printed the Gandalf hero, they had to do some really cool things because you're no longer allowed to play the ally. And so I'm hoping that we see some sort of similarity there where Nick is going to have to be a hero that is so good and good enough to make it worth nobody being able to run the Nick ally. And so I'm pretty excited to see what that design space looks like.
And Maria Hill, we just talked about
True.
how broken the Maria Hill build is, or how strong the Maria Hill build is.
That's very true. Yeah.
Now, Nelson, I've got my Cyclops Maria Hill. Oh, well, I have Maria Hill Cyclops.
Yeah.
So, now what are we going to do? And the Cyclops ally that's coming to Magneto is super strong. Like, it looks amazing, dude. So, yeah, I could see that. That scenario happening where you can't run Maria Hill or Nick Fury at the table anymore. And these are just staples of Marvel Champions gameplay for the last 5 years.
Well,
That's
it's
really
not
cool.
necessarily anymore. And I know, like, we're just kind of saying, and I agree, like, it will be disappointing to not be able to have those two allies because of how good they are. But also then with the thing that we've mentioned several times where, there's 50 some heroes. So at least it'll just be once in a while after, people have kind of wore them out, so to speak, once they released. And then it should go back to, okay, you'll be able to still play them sometimes. Just that once in a while, somebody's like, hey, I'm playing Maria. Okay, well, I can't play that deck or this ally. Here we go. So I'll choose something else.
All right. So we're gonna close up here. So just real quick before we get into our outro, I want to know, and we've talked about what we want to see with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because that's concrete. We know Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are coming. We can speculate wildly on that. What about what we don't know is coming? Right. So what are some of your wish list hero and villains? And you want to give, a couple of each. Wish list heroes and villains that you would like to see added to the game. Aaron, you want to go first?
Was it
Doctor Strange?
Can't say Doctor Strange nowadays. Villains. I want Snowflame.
What?
Snowflame.
Who is that?
Oh, no, it's
You
DC.
made that up. Don't you Jesus.
I'm thinking.
You're embarrassing me in front of our guests.
No.
I want Batman.
Pass.
Good answer. Good
God.
answer.
Jesus Christ.
Show
Help
me
me.
Snowflame.
Oh my God, it's the worst Family Feud. You are. That's who you. That was Family Feud, and I just threw you. I let you go first because I knew you probably didn't have the strong. Oh my God. I love you so much, but you disappoint me. I have low expectations and you still disappoint.
Gets more powerful the more cocaine he does.
Oh, we're getting to that point where we got to pull Josh back. Okay.
Get to that point where it do a rail. It's not me. It's Aaron.
Josh,
Okay.
get it together.
Are you ready? Paste Pop Pete. Paste Pop Pete.
Okay. Yeah, you've been riding that train for a while.
And Galactus.
Okay, what about heroes?
They're very different power levels. So.
Same box. Galactus and Pace
Paste Pop Pete. That's right. Well, Paste Pop Pete could be a back of the pack modular set.
No,
right?
Galactus is the intro villain. Pace Pop Pete is the
It's
curveball you do with Loki.
Nobody saw it coming. Yes, yes. Yeah. No, I would love a Galactus villain that is a massive multiplayer epic scenario like they did for Lord of the Rings or Arkham
The
Horror,
Blob.
where you can have like 50 people playing one thing. So that would be cool.
That'd be cool.
Yep.
What about heroes?
Heroes. Who needs heroes? No, I know a lot of people have certain opinions, but listener mentioned some like the supernatural ones, and that's piqued my interest a little bit more.
Mhm.
Elsa Bloodstone, the guy with the flame, Ghost Rider,
Oh
those
my
types
God.
of guys, like Blade. Those would be
We are
pretty fun.
sitting
I
here
think.
with two of the most prominent Marvel Champions creators, content creators in this sphere, and you all don't know heroes outside of Marvel.
I just
killing
forget
me.
his name. The guy with the Nick Cage.
Nicholas.
You got it. You got it.
Nicholas Cage.
All right,
Yeah.
Nelson, knock it out. Steve's done. We're done with Steve. Nelson, what do you got?
Yeah, those are guys I
Couldn't
like.
remember Ghost Rider. Good
Ghost
Lord.
Rider. Whatever his name is.
I've always been really excited for a street level defenders type wave with Jessica Jones, Luke Cage. I really enjoyed those TV shows. I think I'm contractually obligated by the community to mention Daredevil at this point. For villains are kind of interesting. I think it was Kilgrave, right? It was the Jessica Jones villain.
Purple
I think
Man,
that would be kind of
The
really
Purple
interesting to like think of how they could do that type of villain where you have to do what he says, and like what does that look like? Galactus would be really cool, like we were saying earlier.
I think it would be cool with Kilgrave where you could potentially design an encounter, like an entire villain encounter set that works a la, Enchantress and Shadow King and stuff, where it just kind of negates those allies. Because we have those
That
in
would be
modulars.
cool.
We don't have a villain that does that.
That'd be
Where
really
the villain
cool.
is about negating your allies.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I think my last I would like a standalone Doc Ock. I think Doc Ock is one of those iconic Spider-Man villains. I think we should get a standalone Doctor Octopus scenario.
Nathan.
Hero, no question. I mean, my favorite Marvel hero for quite some time now is Daredevil, so I want Daredevil. And then Punisher, and that would go hand in hand. I mean, those two would be awesome. And then villain, I guess part of that's because of how much I love Daredevil, Kingpin. And I mean, I think if you got Daredevil, you get Kingpin.
Very cool.
But I think Vincent D'Onofrio, at least I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, his portrayal of Kingpin, I thought Kingpin was a cool villain before, but his portrayal of Kingpin in the Netflix show, I absolutely, the first time I saw it, I was like, man, what? And then we got into that one episode, first or so appearance of Kingpin, and he's like curb stomping a dude on his vehicle, and it's like, no, this dude's a Kingpin. This freaking dude's a Kingpin. Yeah, Vincent D'Onofrio, you're the man. So, but yeah, Kingpin. Just and Doc Ock also, that would be awesome. I agree that he definitely, as far as Spider-Man lore, he needs his own villain encounter. So,
Aaron, you thought anything?
Yeah, now that I've actually not been put on the spot, I actually like to see Doom as a villain.
Ooh,
yeah, Dr. Doom.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, he's coming into the MCU, right? We're bringing
Perfect
bringing Robert Downey Jr.
I
back
don't know how that's
somehow.
gonna work, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I trust them, man. They've made 20 years of good content that I've loved, so I trust them to do it. Okay.
So you guys have mentioned Dr. Octopus, Dr. Doom, but you are forgetting the best doctor of all the villains, Dr. Bong. I'm not joking. He's a Howard the Duck villain, so we need a Howard the Duck hero.
Oh.
And he's like a geneticist, but he has this bell-shaped helmet, and he's got like a giant metal fist thing, and he hits his helmet and creates a bong sound that causes all these different abilities and powers. So, Dr. Bong and a Howard the Duck.
Venom hates this one trick.
Right? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
they'll have to very carefully outline at the introduction of that exactly what you just said, and that it is not anything else associated with that word.
Right.
Dr. Bong. Yeah.
Dr. Bong. He does masterful plans like stealing Howard Stark's girlfriend, things like that. So he's not that imposing.
That's we need the Dr. Bong episode of Critical.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, okay, we'll work it up. So
We need that to be done. For me, for heroes, I mean, Falcon and Winter Soldier, right? Those are. I'm a Captain America fanatic I've said this a million times. It's like my catchphrase at this point. I have more pictures of Captain America in my home than I do of my children. Right. So I need Falcon. I need Winter Soldier. Preferably, I need Captain America Sam Wilson is what I would like. And Captain America, Bucky Barnes, but whatever. I'll take Winter Soldier. But also like Ghost Rider. Like I love Ghost Rider. I would love to see Ghost Rider come in. I would kill for a Juggernaut hero. Love Juggernaut. I loved his solo run, the few solo comics he's gotten. But then for villains, Fin Fang Foom. I think Fin Fang Foom.
Oh yeah,
a big. Yeah, I think Fin Fang Foom would fit really well if we got the Fantastic Four.
Yes.
Like you throw Fin Fang Foom, Doctor Doom, Silver Surfer, those guys in there. You give us Galactus, a cosmic level threat. Bring Fin Fang Foom in. Serpent Society. I think a great like little scenario pack. Give us Serpent Society.
I think that could work as a villain. I think they may very well put that in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think they could do that as the
multi villain. Yeah,
that would be good.
Yeah.
Carnage is another one. I want Carnage. Yeah, I would love to see. I think again the Absolute Carnage could be a really good scenario pack, standalone scenario pack where you get Carnage, Scream, Riot, just a bunch of symbiotes that you can throw hands against. All right. So we had another little thing here to bling or not to bling. We all bling, right?
Bling.
Yeah.
Bling.
By the same token, burger tokens, Tesseract dividers. What else? Let's give some shout outs to some people so I can put them in the show notes.
Oh, you got mine.
Yep. Same.
I know, Nelson, you're sponsored by the same token, right? Like
I am.
So by the same token,
anybody who's making storage solutions, like boxes and things of those nature, inserts for boxes, just those things.
I have 3 of the what are the BCW like plastic 3200s, and I literally okay, real quick. I know we all gotta go.
Real quick, he says.
I have to. I can't do anything real quick. It's just pardon me. This has been a good episode. I think people have enjoyed it. I hope people have enjoyed this so far. It's been great having you guys here. I think it's been a pretty good conversation.
I've had a blast.
I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, see, Nelson's enjoyed it. Steve, why you
jury's out? Jury's out for me. I'll tell you later, Josh. I'll let you know.
Okay. But the BCW 3200, the plastic card boxes, I walked outside the gaming company holding one and hit the stairs, and it was raining, and I slipped and went over elbow into a circle, threw my thing up in the air, and it landed, hit the steps, went down the steps, did not open. My cards did not come out. It was none the worse for wear. The BCW 3200 count card boxes, I cannot stress enough. Cannot recommend enough. It was great.
That's a glowing right there.
I literally threw it in the air like cartoon style and went down, and it didn't drop my. I was terrified. But yeah,
it was pouring the rain.
Yeah,
it would have been awful.
Yeah, it would have been real bad, man. Real bad.
All that money.
Yeah, but to bling or not to bling, we bling. I use Dragon Shields. Steve just went on an epic quest to try to find red Dragon Shields.
And I got official response from the Dragon Shield company. They are discontinued. They are not making them anymore.
No. Dragon Shield, we know you're listening.
The red matte ones. Sorry, the red matte Dragon Shields discontinued. So they got like 50 other red colors, but just not red.
Yeah.
But we know the Dragon Shield higher ups listen to the Hills Have Nerds. We know that. They're definitely in our demographic. Why red? Why discontinue red matte?
Like the base color, right?
Yeah, like it's red. Like red, you know what? You can't get any, like red is a primary color. You cannot get any more basic than red.
Right. But they have ruby, and they have scarlet, and they have blood, and they have lava, and there's like 20 other colors that are quote unquote red, but none of them match. I'm so disappointed.
And you know what? None of them match red.
None of them are red.
I called 4 different stores for you, Steve, trying to find.
I appreciate it. I went and ordered 5 packs from AliExpress. We'll see if they ever show. So.
Look. All right. But yeah, bling. By all means, bling, protect your stuff, protect your investment. Cards look better when they're bling. And then there's who makes the little like holofoil sleeves? Is that Steve from Play the Game? Didn't he have something like that? Yeah, I'll throw a link in the show notes for those. Those look awesome.
Make it shine.
Yeah, make it shine.
Yeah.
I was supposed to order some from him a while back and I forgot. So, but yeah, they're great. Check those out. But all right, so we're done. We've went almost 2 hours, probably over 2 hours now. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for putting up with this. Thanks for nerding out with us. It was awesome to have you guys here.
For having us.
Yeah, it's great being here.
Thanks for coming to Nelson's house, everybody.
Yeah, it was great.
Nelson did invite me to. What was I was going to show up at your house because you told me I could come over.
Yeah, of course. Anytime.
Yeah. Tell your wife I'll be there, sir. Nelson told me I could sleep on the couch. Nelson, who's this man? I'm with the Hills Have Nerds. Give me a Capri Sun and point me on my. But yeah, so Nelson, where can the people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on mainly YouTube and Twitch. Nelson NelsonAllOverCards. That'll probably get you there.
All right, Steve. Thank you again for being here, brother. I'm so glad you were here. I wish should have got Daniel too, so I could argue with him about Weil.
Yeah, you can have him back. So
where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm going to break the rules again. So you can find us, Critical Encounters Podcast, but you can find our loyal minions on YouTube, Board Game Lawyer, Night of the Living Card Game, Ray Plays Games, The Masked Hero, and plenty of other folks. Go check out those underrepresented YouTube channels. Those guys have great content. They don't have as many subscribers as Nelson or D20 or Into the Portal or these guys, but they make great stuff. Go check them out. A lot of fun.
I'm going to have to check some of those out myself. The only one Board Game Lawyer, I've already, I've followed him for a while. I've somehow have missed, and I'm sure that in your all's episode that it's mentioned, but it's just flown right past me. So yeah, they're going to pick up some viewers from me today.
Awesome. If you go to our YouTube channel in our on our homepage and you scroll down, it says like the community area, other Marvel Champion channels. We linked a bunch of these guys who have great stuff, but not a lot of viewers. Go check them out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks.
So you heard it here. Everybody that Steve just named better than Nelson's channel is what he just said.
It's true.
Well, he plugged his own show. He doesn't need help from me.
So we have like 32 subscribers to our YouTube. We have like
31.
Yeah. We have like 10,000 hours of the podcast on Spotify. So we have a good amount of listeners, and thank you everybody. We are in 16 countries as of today. We picked up a new one.
That's awesome.
Thank you anybody that streams us, and we love all of you. But go watch the friggin' YouTube, even though it's all the same stuff that we put out anywhere. But we have some live episodes on the YouTube now from thing, and the audio's a little meh on some of those, but it's still okay. But yeah, Nathan, can people find you anywhere?
At the gaming company in Pikeville, Kentucky. Open 7 days a week, blah, blah, blah. No, that's it. I don't have any other, any cool things like Nelson and Steve do. So I just like to listen to their stuff.
All right. And for the nerds, if you want to find us, we are on, you've already found us because you're listening to us, right? But go check out our YouTube. Come join our Discord. Come on our Facebook. Come hang out with us. Let us know what you think about the episode. What you think about Marvel Champions. Do you like it? Have you never played it? Is it something you're thinking about playing now? If you're just listening to us now because you're interested in Marvel Champions, we have all kinds of other stuff that we talk about. We're not a sole Marvel Champions podcast, so you may never listen to anything else. But if you do, thank you very much for that. And if you like our show, tell your friends. If you don't like our show, go language yourself.
Whoa! Wow. All right.
Nelson, take us out.
Bye.
You heard it, guys. Everybody take care.
Play
yourself.